to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. President Trump welcomes the King of Jordan to the White House. What Trump says about his rebuilding plans for the Gaza Strip. The chairman of the Federal Reserve testifies in the Senate. He gives an update on the economy and interest rates. The Department of Homeland Security fires 4 FEMA employees today over a $59 million payment, including the chief financial officer. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem floating the idea of abolishing FEMA. More on the Trump administration's latest downsizing efforts. Former White House Chief Strategist Steve Bannon pleads guilty in the border wall funding case. What his plea deal looks like. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is set to attend multiple NATO meetings this week. He's the first Trump administration official to visit the alliance's headquarters. What the goals are of this trip.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Donald Trump is welcoming the King of Jordan to the White House. Now, this comes as the Middle East country is expected to play a major role in Trump's rebuilding plans for Gaza.
And we'll be working on the rest with Egypt. I think you're going to see some great progress. I think with Jordan, you're going to see some great progress. 3 of us, and we'll have some others helping, and we're going to have some others at a very high level helping, and the whole thing will come. It's not a complex thing to do. And with the United States being in control of that piece of land, a fairly large piece of land, you're going to have stability in the Middle East for the first time. And the Palestinians, or the people that live now in Gaza, will be living beautifully in another location. They're going to be living safely. They're not going to be killed, murdered, and having to leave every 10 years, because I've been watching this for so many years. It's nothing but trouble. Everyone's being killed. They're being robbed. It's like living in hell. And they're going to end up having a great home, great families that don't have to get mugged and killed and beaten up and harassed by Hamas and everybody else. And I know we'll be able to work something. And what you just said about the 2000 is fantastic. It's so beautiful. It's music to my ears. But we're going to be able to work something, and I know we'll be able to work something also with I believe, not 100%, but 99%. We're going to work out something with Egypt.
How is the U.S. going to own Gaza? Your White House has made clear taxpayer dollars won't be used for this. So what money are you going to use to buy Gaza?
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it. And we're going to run it very properly, and eventually we'll have economic development at a very large scale, maybe the largest scale on that site. And we'll have lots of good things built there, including hotels and office buildings and housing and other things. And we'll make that site into what it should be. And the people from Gaza who wouldn't be able to be there for years, because you're talking about just to get it and prepare it and to take care of all of the problems that currently it has. As you know, tunnels, and people are in those tunnels. And you have some good people and some bad people, and you may have hostages right now. You know, you have the hostages possibly there. They don't know where they are. And, you know, I have a Saturday deadline, and I don't think they're going to make the deadline personally. I think they want to play tough guy, but we'll see how tough they are. But it's going to be a wonderful thing. It's going to be wonderful for the Middle East. I think it'll turn the Middle East. I think you're going to have peace in the Middle East. You're going to eventually have peace in the Middle East.
Mr. President, you were saying that Palestinians will live somewhere else safe. Where exactly do you want them to live?
Well, it's not where I want them to live. It's going to be where we ultimately choose as a group. And I believe we'll have a parcel of land in Jordan. I believe we'll have a parcel of land in Egypt. We may have someplace else, but I think when we finish our talks, we'll have a place where they're going to live very happily and very safely. And, you know, don't forget, they only want to be on the Gaza Strip because they don't know anything else. They never had an alternative. And they don't want to be on the Gaza Strip, but they have no choice. They have to be. And they're being killed there at levels that nobody's ever seen. No place in the world is as dangerous as the Gaza Strip. They don't want to be there. They have no alternative. When they have an alternative, not one person will want to stay where they are. Nobody wants to stay there. They're living in hell. It's a death trap.
Jordan's King Abdullah II announced that the kingdom will accept 2,000 ill and cancer-stricken children from Gaza, quote, as quickly as possible. Trump praised the move. The king's visit comes as Trump proposes his plan for Gaza and pressures Arab neighbors to take in refugees from Gaza. Jordan, along with other Arab nations in the region, have rejected Trump's plan to resettle Gaza refugees. Trump has suggested that, if necessary, he would withhold U.S. funding for Jordan and Egypt as a means of persuading them to accept additional Palestinians from Gaza. Jordan and Egypt are among the top recipients of U.S. foreign aid. And the president could impose more tariffs on trading partners today. Meanwhile, Trump appointed Terry Cole as the next administrator of the Drug Enforcement Administration. Cole is currently Virginia's Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security. Moving on now, former Trump advisor Steve Bannon pleaded guilty today in the border wall funding case. This case involves a private fundraising drive known as We Build the Wall during President Trump's first term. As part of the plea deal, Bannon avoids jail time, but is barred from fundraising for or running any charitable organization with assets in New York State. New York's prosecutors charged Bannon with money laundering and conspiracy. He's accused of deceiving donors in 2019 who contributed more than $15 million to the private border wall fundraising drive. Bannon had previously pleaded not guilty and called the case a political persecution. Coming out of the courthouse today, Bannon called on the Justice Department to investigate New York Attorney General Letitia James and Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Bannon's trial is scheduled for March 4th, and a pre-trial conference is scheduled for later today in New York State Criminal Court. He talked to media outside the courthouse.
The existential threat to President Trump's administration is not in federal court. What President Trump is doing is constitutional. The appellate courts will say that. The Supreme Court will say that. The existential threat to President Trump's administration, and I mean DOGE, Elon Musk, Secretary of Treasury Bessent, Russ Vought, Stephen Miller, all of his people. The existential threat is right here in this city. It is the queen of lawfare. It's Letitia James. Right now, Soros has a DA that's running unopposed. He can call a grand jury at any time. He can set up criminal charges on the most bogus efforts. Letitia James runs this deal. She's got a pliant media right here, pliant left-wing media. She's got a jury pool of only left-wing radicals in the Upper West Side of this city. And she's got the judges. She's got all of it. And I'm calling on right now the Attorney General Pam Bondi to begin an immediate criminal investigation into Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, all of it for what they did to President Trump.
The Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA for short, fired its chief financial officer and 3 other employees today. In a statement, the Department of Homeland Security said the 4 individuals, quote, unilaterally made egregious payments for New York City hotels to house migrants. The spokesperson said, quote, DHS will not sit idly and allow deep state activists to undermine the will and safety of the American people. This news comes one day after the head of DOGE, Elon Musk, announced they uncovered a $59 million payment made last week. He said sending this money violated the law. And fresh numbers are in from Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, showing more than $1 billion in cuts after just 3 weeks. One of the biggest cost-saving measures was the cancellation of more than 100 contracts related to diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. The White House estimates that scrapping these contracts alone saved over $1 billion. Other major cuts include a nearly $750 million contract for a new embassy in South Sudan. Smaller cuts hit political subscriptions worth $500,000 and $26 million in contracts for executive coaching and strategic communication. DOGE revealed an additional $100 million in DEI-related training grants from the Department of Education, plus $880 million in other contracts tied to DEI programs. The Department of Agriculture also saw some cuts, including $9 million in contracts. One affected project is titled Central American Gender Assessment Consultant Services. And turning back to those 4 employees who have been fired from FEMA, debate continues to surround the agency. This in the wake of Elon Musk claiming that his Department of Government Efficiency found that FEMA spent that $59 million last week to continue housing illegal immigrants in luxury hotels in New York City. Acting FEMA Administrator Cameron Hamilton then announced that all such payments had been suspended. For more on this, we're now bringing in Mike Leon, NTD News contributor, Policy and Strategy Director of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation, and host of the News Commentary podcast, Can We Please Talk? Mike, great to see you as always. Let's talk about those 4 employees that just got fired from FEMA. Now, notably, that includes the Chief Financial Officer of FEMA. Now, this was all for this claim Musk made about that $59 million payment here in New York City. Do you see any indication that we'll be seeing more cases like this coming up soon?
Hey, Fiona, good to see you. So, it's funny enough, I texted the spokesperson that released that, Tricia McLaughlin, because I wanted to find out a little bit more about this myself, and additionally because we were covering last night on our latest episode what DOGE has been uncovering, and we talked about and alluded to this $59 million payment to hotels for migrants. And as you know, I'm from New York City. I lived in that area in Hell's Kitchen around 50th and 10th, where some of the money is said to have been spent in terms of allocation for migrants in the areas. And obviously, everybody knows New York is a sanctuary city. But I think this speaks to the broader, right, Fiona, because what's happening right now and the pushback you're seeing is really about not so much government efficiency. It's about Elon Musk controlling government efficiency. And I think the pushback from Democrats is like, well, they don't like the person who's leading the organization, but you can't deny some of the things that they have uncovered that are grossly being wasted in terms of taxpayer dollars. This is one prime example. We can talk about how we house migrants and what we do about people that are coming here waiting for their asylum trials. It can't be in luxury hotels and it can't be on taxpayer dollars. And I think this is what is being uncovered so far with respect to what DOGE has done over these first couple of weeks.
Right. I want to get back to the criticism on Musk in a second. But first, in this statement about these 4 individuals being fired, they mentioned that these individuals had circumvented leadership and that this is an issue that's been brought up before, too. I mean, we saw the U.S. Government Accountability Office saying that they found some FEMA personnel performing oversight without the authorization to do so. How concerning do you find that?
We should all find it concerning, right? I mean, and again, it depends on, because as I was trying to pry information out of Tricia, which I was unable to get, Fiona, but we want to find out more from these employees. And I'm sure in the coming weeks, depending upon what they sign as part of their either NDA to not, be able to work somewhere else or disclose information about this, if it is a pending investigation, whatever it is, we're not going to be able to talk to these people as to why they went around their bosses and circumvented this and approved this funding. And I think this is, again, back to the core of what Elon Musk is championing about. There is inefficiency in government. There's bureaucracy, there's red tape, there's hurdles, there's the way information trickles down from the top to the bottom and vice versa, as you're seeing here, where these are lower level employees that are getting approval and maneuvering around maybe some people that were signing off on some of the things from FEMA at the C-suite level. So I'm concerned about it. We should all be concerned about it, specifically because it involves taxpayer dollars, the way Congress mandates these dollars. It involves all of our federal agencies that give money to be able to help people in times of crises. This is not one of them, or at least not the way the money should be being spent.
Absolutely. Now, Mike, here's a clip of Kristi Noem earlier on CNN. Let's take a look.
If the president came to you and said, "You're my DHS secretary, do you think I should get rid of FEMA?" Excuse me, get rid of FEMA, what would you say?
I would say yes, get rid of FEMA the way it exists today. We still need the resources and the funds and the finances to go to people that have these types of disasters like Hurricane Helene and the fires in California. But you need to let the local officials make the decisions on how that is deployed.
So, Mike, it seems that there's a trend in the Trump administration right now of moving responsibilities and jurisdiction away from the federal government and back to state and local government. So my question here is, are states equipped to handle that?
States depends on the size of the state, right? Some states are not equipped to handle that. So let's analyze one part that she mentioned there, Fiona, that I think got lost in all of this. In its current state, that's the big key. Because she's not saying get rid of FEMA entirely. She's talking about the way FEMA allocates funds, the bureaucracy and red tape that people go through to try to access those funds when there is times of crises, right? Down here in Florida, obviously what happened with hurricane that hit the Sarasota area back in August. Like there is funds that need to be allocated to people that are beyond state dollars, let's be honest, right? But there's red tape and hurdles and a lot of challenges that people go through to try to access those funds. So I think analyzing the key part of what she said there, Kristi Noem said there, remember, FEMA funnels into DHS. So obviously she's going to be the lead authority to talk to the president about what FEMA should exist in the current state. And I think that's the big key, because in its current state right now, given what we just saw of these employees that were fired, there's a little bit of misappropriation of funds and people going around the conventional norms of how we should be allocating these funds and resources to get it to the people that are actually hurting when disaster strikes.
Mike, you're absolutely right. She's saying right now that we should get rid of FEMA perhaps in its current state. But do you see a possibility of Trump perhaps pushing for the full abolition of FEMA in the future? And if so, does he have the authority to actually do that?
To be seen, I don't believe he has the authority. Here's the one thing I will say, Fiona. If you've looked at everything President Trump has run on, and specifically, like, just go back one example, the abortion issue. States should decide it. He's always said that, right? If we're going with states should decide things, states should do something, the problem is we are the United States of America. There has to be a federal intervention, something that oversees all 50 states, or else we're all going to run wild. And also there's going to be a lot of states that have smaller budgets, that don't have as much population, as much income, economy being generated in those states, that are going to struggle. This is where you rely on federal dollars. So I would think that somebody way smarter than me, Fiona, would be whispering that in his ear from an economic secretary standpoint, or somebody that has the ear of the president. I know a few that have been assistants to him from an economic standpoint. I'm sure one of them have said there's a rhyme and a reason why FEMA does exist. But again, I want to go back to what she said in the current state. And I think it's just a central through line that I'm taking away from Elon Musk's DOGE to what Kristi Noem just said there. Right now in the current state, money's being misappropriated and we're hitting $36 trillion in debt. We have to do something to start slashing budgets and figuring out how to stretch the dollar a little bit more.
Now, my other question here is, critics say that Elon Musk and DOGE, they don't have the authorization, they don't have the power, and they should not be accessing all of this personal data that they currently have access to, especially with the DHS. Now, Noem says that Trump has given authorization. Is there any clear outline here of what Musk and DOGE can have access to when they're making these investigations?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's start with the clearance part of this. I mean, I think people are not realizing that back in the 60s, there was this special government employee mandate that came down where, I think it was 1962, where Elon Musk, a private citizen that's offering subject matter expertise, can now be a federal government employee for up to 130 days out of the 365-day-a-year calendar. So he qualifies under that. His office is working under that direction. And obviously, again, the scope and overreach of what they're trying to do, some of that's going to be challenged, as you saw some of the legal challenges that have been brought against some of the things that have come out of DOGE. We're going to see how those play out in the courts with respect to lawsuits. But the central through line, again, and I love going to the through line, Fiona, is that Elon Musk was granted this by the president. It's within the executive authority to do this. But again, it's up to 130 days in terms of what they can do. And people, listen, 2009, Barack Obama did the exact same thing. Look it up from the Obama White House archives. April 18th of 2009, he appointed 2 different people to oversee government efficiency, wasteful spending, cut 5% across different programs. This is not Mike Leon making it up. This is from obamawhitehouse.archives.gov. You can go read about this information. So someone once upon a time tried to do this and really be efficient about the way government is spending dollars, our taxpayer dollars. And I think the ire is really about who's leading it versus what its aims are.
That's a really good point you make there. Now, before we go, of course, FEMA, whether you're for cutting it down, whether you're for keeping it going, at the end of the day, what matters is what they're doing for Americans who face these natural disasters. And you're in Florida, Mike, and you're definitely no stranger to hurricanes. So tell us, in your experience, how has FEMA performed there that you've observed?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I've been fortunate since I've been living down here that the eye of any storms have not come through the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach areas. But I have family that lives northern, obviously in the Orlando area, and obviously on the western side with Sarasota and the Tampa areas, which has been the ire of the storms, at least recently, right? Back in August, a lot of damage when I went up there in late September for a wedding and assessing the situation. And listen, this is what FEMA has done. And by the way, Jimmy Carter started FEMA in 1979. I feel like a lot of the things that Jimmy Carter started are being analyzed with the Trump administration. But he started this because we got to get a way to get people the funds that they need access to, whether it be emergency medical supplies, whether it be applying for, housing and fixing what happened to their house and the damage that was sustained, right? Natural disasters. This is what the money is for. And FEMA are some of the few people that are right on the ground, giving people the information that they need. It's not a blank check. They don't come here with money right away. Obviously, you have to go through the hurdles and the red tape. And that's why I think what Kristi Noem was saying about getting the money to the states and the localities faster, because they're on the ground. They can disseminate the funds. They know who's in need. They know the impact areas. You don't want somebody from the federal level that's never been to Sarasota, that's never been to some of these counties, and doesn't really know the impact and the damage and has to come here, as opposed to people that are already on the ground. So FEMA has done a good job in Florida. I know Ron DeSantis has talked about the relationship previously with President Biden and FEMA. They have done a good job, but there's still a lot of hurdles and red tape that people have to comb through to get the funds available to be able to fix, the situation that unfortunately was upended due to a natural disaster.
Absolutely, and that's a very important point to keep in mind. Mike Leon, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Fiona.
When we come back, the Federal Reserve gives an update on the state of the U.S. economy and his opinions on rate cuts. And New York City Mayor Eric Adams looks ahead after the Justice Department orders federal prosecutors in Manhattan to drop the corruption charges against him. He says the case was politically motivated. That and more after the break.
Shen Yun Creations, the streaming platform from Shen Yun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're going to benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
Come to Mathis Home today and save big during our Presidential Savings Event with markdowns in every department. We've got all the latest looks for every room in your house at incredible savings. Get huge discounts on hundreds of sofas in all the latest styles. Or shop online and find an unbeatable selection of over 230,000 items. We've got it all. For great quality, all the latest styles, and best value, come to the Presidential Savings Event at Mathis Home.
Thanks for staying with us. Some good news now. Indicators are saying that the U.S. economy is moving in a positive direction. That's according to Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Powell testified today in front of the Senate Banking Committee, and here's what he had to say.
Recent indicators suggest that economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace. GDP rose 2.5% in 2024, bolstered by resilient consumer spending. Investment in equipment and intangibles appears to have declined in the fourth quarter, but was solid for the year overall.
Today is day one of the Federal Reserve's semi-annual report to Congress. Chairman Powell indicated that interest rates are not likely to change anytime soon. He also said mortgage rates will probably remain high as well. And due to housing shortages in some areas in the country, housing costs will also likely remain elevated. The Justice Department has directed federal prosecutors in New York to drop corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Adams maintains that he is innocent, telling reporters this afternoon that it's time for the city to move forward.
My fellow New Yorkers, as you may have heard, the Department of Justice has directed that the case against me be dismissed, finally ending a months-long saga that put me, my family, and this city through an unnecessary ordeal. As I said from the outset, I never broke the law, and I never would. I would never put any personal benefit above my solemn responsibility as your mayor.
Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove said the case was stopping the mayor from assisting the Trump administration in cracking down on illegal immigration. Adams was a close ally of President Joe Biden when he began his mayoral term in 2022. After Biden's DOJ indicted the former police captain, Adams said he had been unfairly targeted over his criticism of the president's immigration policies. Trump pleaded not guilty to 4 sets of criminal indictments in 2023. He has also argued the charges against him were politically motivated as well. A major move from President Trump, he's imposing a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum. This is a decision set to take effect March 4th. The move could have wide-reaching effects on trade, industry, and consumer prices. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that and other recent steps.
President Trump has imposed a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum, set to take effect March 4th, impacting key suppliers like Canada, Mexico, and South Korea.
And it's going to mean a lot of businesses are going to be opening in the United States.
U.S. steelmakers welcome the move, saying it protects domestic production.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. This is the beginning of making America rich again.
The American Iron and Steel Institute says trade policies implemented during Trump's first administration created a more competitive environment for the U.S. steel industry, leading to significant investments in new and upgraded facilities. Although the tariffs may be unwelcome news for foreign steel producers, Trump says they can avoid the new fees by shifting production to the U.S.
So if it's made in the United States, there is no tariff. All you have to do is make it in the United States. We don't need it from another country.
Analysts warn that industries that rely on metals, automakers, appliance manufacturers, and construction could see rising costs fueling inflation. On Monday, Trump said he will announce more reciprocal tariffs in the next 2 days.
If they charge us, we charge them. If they're at 25, we're at 25. If they're at 10, we're at 10.
Trump argues these moves will strengthen domestic manufacturing, though concerns remain over the broader economic impact. Shares at major listed steelmakers and top producer China slid on Tuesday as the fresh tariffs stoked concerns over the possible impact on steel exports this year. Meanwhile, Trump has signed an executive order reversing Biden-era environmental policies, including a measure phasing out single-use plastics like straws. Trump says paper straws don't work.
And I don't think that plastic's going to affect a shark very much as they're munching their way through the ocean.
The policy reversal sparked mixed reactions from consumers.
I would honestly prefer the plastic one over a paper straw, to be honest. I mean, I know it's definitely worse for the environment. I wish there was a different way. But, I mean, the paper ones are always soggy, so it's a little difficult.
And I think that as a consumer, I would definitely choose to support places that don't have plastic straws.
In another executive action, Trump has paused enforcement of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, calling it a disaster for business. The 1977 law bans U.S. companies from bribing foreign officials, but Trump argues it hurts American competitiveness. Attorney General Pam Bondi will oversee the shift, prioritizing cartel and terrorism cases instead. And in a high-profile pardon, Trump has cleared former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. The Democrat served 8 years of a 14-year sentence for corruption charges, including attempting to sell Barack Obama's Senate seat. Trump previously commuted his sentence in 2020. Trump was asked if he is considering Blagojevich for ambassador to Serbia.
No, but I would. I mean, he's now cleaner than anybody in this room.
While Trump's latest moves are drawing praise from supporters and criticism from opponents, the long-term impact remains to be seen. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Trump said he has agreed to consider a tariff exemption on Australian steel and aluminum imports. This after a telephone call yesterday with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Trump said the United States trade surplus with Australia was one of the reasons he was considering an exemption from the tariffs. Australia had an exemption from such tariffs during Trump's first administration as well. And moving on now, the Department of Justice has filed an appeal against a judge's order to immediately unfreeze federal funding for various programs. The appeal comes just hours after District Judge John McConnell ruled the Trump administration had not fully complied with his earlier directive to restore payments. The Office of Management and Budget initially implemented the funding freeze. It's part of a broader review of federal spending, targeting programs related to foreign aid, DEI, and so-called gender ideology initiatives. Critics argue the freeze violates constitutional spending laws, while the administration says it is a necessary measure in order to prevent waste and fraud. The case now heads to a higher court. A federal judge has blocked the Trump administration's effort to cut the National Institutes of Health funding for research programs at the universities and medical systems. Lawyers for dozens of research institutions told the judge the change would have a severe impact on critical public health research. The judge agreed with 22 Democratic-led states that cost-cutting should be blocked temporarily. A second lawsuit filed on Monday also says the cuts would, quote, devastate medical research. And a third lawsuit asked the judge to expand her initial action to apply not just to states that had sued. Late Monday, the judge expanded the pause on NIH cost-cutting nationwide. At least one person is dead after a collision on the ground at an airport in Arizona. Authorities say a business jet skidded off the runway yesterday and collided with another plane. Apart from the one person who died, authorities say there are 4 others injured. The fire department said yesterday one of them was trapped inside the wreckage. The Federal Aviation Administration said in a statement that it was investigating the crash. The private jet belonged to metal band Motley Crue's lead singer Vince Neil. A representative for the singer said Mr. Neil's thoughts and prayers go out to everyone involved. The crash comes in the wake of 3 other deadly air disasters in recent weeks. Google says it's now the Gulf of America. If you're like a lot of people, when President Donald Trump changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico, you checked Google Maps immediately, and it still said Gulf of Mexico, but not anymore. The company says its policy is to change names when they have been updated by official government sources. Trump changed the name through an executive order last month, and Google Maps is now reflecting that change. But users in Mexico will still see the name Gulf of Mexico. Everywhere else, users will see both names. Trump also changed the name of Mount Denali in Alaska back to Mount McKinley. Google said it would change that on its maps as well, but that has yet to happen. Former President Barack Obama made the change back in 2015 to honor the state's native people. As for what map and globe makers do, that decision is up to them. When we come back, Elon Musk's DOGE has already made over $1 billion in cuts to the federal government. This, according to the White House. We speak with a political reporter about the special government employees' downsizing plans. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is set to attend multiple NATO meetings this week. He's the first Trump administration official to visit the alliance's headquarters. More on the goals of his trip after the break.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by U.S. News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness. 2025, the 5th NTD International Photography Competition. Capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. How to safely build a fire, and how to control the flames. But I can only teach wildfire prevention. Only you can prevent wildfires.
Thanks for staying with us. Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency has made over $1 billion in federal spending cuts. That's according to new White House numbers. And that may only be the tip of the iceberg, because the DOGE X account lists around $6 billion in announced cuts. And joining us now to break this all down is Nathan Worcester, national political reporter for the Epoch Times. Nathan, thank you for joining us. It's good to see you again. Tell us, what are the majority of the spending cuts? Where are they happening?
So it has been interesting to see at this identification phase, I would say, of DOGE. DOGE, of course, isn't a conventional government department. It's a time-limited organization situated in a repurposed version of U.S. digital services in the executive office of the president. And you have these special government employees operating in different agencies, identifying cuts across a wide range of domains, many of them in line with the president's executive actions. For example, his moves against supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in the federal government. Just yesterday, there was a large suite of cuts related to that, DEI, in the Department of Education. There were similar cuts in other areas, totaling over the course of one day, almost $1 billion. I will say, though, looking through the numbers that we have so far, coming from things like the DOGE X account and other sources, it's somewhat difficult to sort through it and provide a definitive top line number. I think it's possible that some of these numbers that we see overlap in various areas. So that's why I think at this stage, having a single definitive number is, you need to be cautious about that. But certainly we're well into the billions. At one point, they were estimating they were making $1 billion worth of cuts per day. And right now they're moving into, as we can discuss in a moment, the Pentagon and various other elements of the government known for problems with efficiency and transparency, the Pentagon famously being unable to pass an audit for years now.
Now, I want to ask you this. You say there, right, we're not completely clear just how many cuts have been made. And I think that's a trend across the board for the DOGE right now. There's a lot of things everyone's not fully clear on. We got one Democratic congressman in New York saying that he feels the DOGE's activity is completely illegal. What's the argument there?
So I can tell you, having heard this from a lot of Democrats and also having gone to a lot of the recent protests outside of government agencies where DOGE was operating or believed to be operating, for example, the Treasury Department, where there has been a subsequent legal battle leading to a restraining order that the Justice Department has then tried to challenge. The idea here, basically, in virtually all these cases, is that there is a sense in which this should be left to the legislative branch, that the executive branch is meddling in areas where really it should be the prerogative of lawmakers to determine what is happening with programs in these agencies. But there's a significant legal dispute here, really boiling down to which vision of the Constitution is accurate. Does, in fact, the executive, the president, and the people that he has appointed have a significant degree of autonomous ability to direct these agencies and to make cuts of this sort? Does he not have that ability? Should this be constrained by the legislature? We're going to see this play out not only in the case of these specific cuts, not only in the case of this back and forth, but also in legislation. You have Democrats releasing legislation aiming to categorically prevent things like DOGE workers accessing Treasury data. On the other hand, you have pro-DOGE bills coming out from Republicans, a very important bill attempting to reverse the Impoundment Control Act, which would, if that were to succeed, restore a great deal of authority and responsibility over these budgets to the president.
And Nathan, let's talk about this article you've got on the Epoch Times. You mentioned in it how the DOGE's newest targets are the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, as well as the Pentagon. Talk to us more about what officials from those departments are saying, especially Pete Hegseth.
Yes, Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, newly appointed. He's someone who very famously had a difficult time getting across the finish line. It came down to a historic vote from J.D. Vance, the vice president. This is only the second time, certainly in modern history, that this has happened with the confirmation. And so Hegseth, unsurprisingly, seems to be showing a lot of loyalty to Trump here, saying that, as many people who pay attention to defense would argue, you do have a significant amount of bloat. You have a lot of, as Derek Van Orden, a congressman and former Navy SEAL, told me, legacy systems, things that are not necessarily good from the perspective of ensuring that the U.S. has a very effective and ready defense posture. But at the same time, I should say, there is a traditional Republican aversion to cutting the Pentagon budget. I think that you're going to see some interesting conflicts begin to play out. The Democrats have been pretty, for the most part, vocal, not all of them, but many of them, about the need to trim the Pentagon as they see it. And so you have both, I think, a certain degree of alignment between the parties, but also you're going to probably see differences of vision even there. And of course, on some other areas, the Department of Labor, Department of Education, you're going to see very few Democrats interested in cutting, or in the case of the Education Department, possibly even eliminating programs.
A very partisan kind of arguments there with these topics. Now, I want to ask this. DOGE, of course, as you mentioned, is time limited. And I think that's something that not a lot of people are realizing. My question here is there a possibility for the president to extend or change that?
So I think that under his own authority, that would be challenging. We have created departments in the U.S. before many times, but this would require actions by the legislature. I think that looking at the narrow House majority, looking at the somewhat, in relative terms, less narrow Senate majority, not in absolute terms, but in relative terms, it does not seem, I have not heard any strong indications of that happening. I think the idea here is just to have a uniquely serious commission operating over this time frame to coincide with the anniversary of 1776 in less than 2 years now. We're going to have to just see exactly what, after going through this identification stage, DOGE is able to do. We'll need to see what plays out in the courts. Certainly, if many of these cases make it to the higher courts, to the Supreme Court, we could see an affirmation of something like the unitary theory of the executive or other interpretations of what President Trump can do that would more clearly empower DOGE in some of these cases that have caused controversy. I would not imagine there will be a permanent department. Oh, please go ahead.
No, please continue.
I was going to say, I would not imagine there's likely to be a permanent department, but I do think we're just going to have to see how these legal battles play out and just what sort of space DOGE itself creates for additional reforms. This was something that a lot of economists who have commented on this have said. You do have skeptics who will claim, well, DOGE can't really touch some of the big social spending or necessarily the Pentagon or other big drivers of the debt and deficit. But many economists who tend to be concerned about the budget will say what DOGE is doing is it creates legitimacy by identifying the very clear-cut cases of waste, fraud, and abuse. That could create more of an opportunity to look into some of these bigger structural issues.
And so do you think, you say it's not likely that DOGE will become a permanent agency. Do you think it's possible that Trump will try to do something to somehow make permanent the changes that DOGE enacted? Or do you see a possibility of once DOGE's time limit is up, some of the changes they've made reverting back to how it originally was?
Absolutely. I think on scores of issues, we all saw in the transition from Trump to Biden, the rescission of executive orders, the reversals of various policies that had only really been established by the executive using mechanisms that could be easily reversed, which is why it's going to be so important to see what happens in Congress, in the House and the Senate. There are lawmakers, Joni Ernst in the Senate. You also have James Lankford there introducing DOGE-related packages. I had a chance to speak with Blake Moore. He's the co-chair of the House DOGE caucus, and he told me a bit about what they are doing. He said that there isn't a great deal of communication between Elon Musk's DOGE and what they are doing in the DOGE caucus, although Speaker Mike Johnson, he said, had maintained more communication. But they're working in parallel. At some point, he told me there's going to be a convergence. Let's look to that convergence, I would see, to really ascertain, is this going to be a short-term thing? Is this just going to be a lot of sound and fury that can be reversed? Or are we going to see laws passed and maybe even accompanying that judicial precedents that cement what DOGE is attempting to do?
Nathan, last question before we go here. Your article also mentions how the DOGE could permanently change the character of civil service or how the public views government agencies. Is that a good thing?
You know, that gets to a very fundamental question about what is the purpose of government? What should the scope of government be? Right now, I think, particularly after the response to COVID-19, the level of quantitative easing, even during 2008, laying the groundwork for that level of expansion in the money supply, you do see the United States grappling with a debt and deficit. Even paying down the interest of that is becoming a formidable challenge. I think it's fair to say that someone like Elon Musk probably entered the political scene on the side of Trump, in large part because that seemed like an increasingly difficult and increasingly crucial structural issue for the U.S. to not only be able to balance its books, but to accomplish everything else that government does. So is it going to lead people to really feel as though the civil service needs to be rethought? I think that will also depend on just how much is delivered by AI. Another area where we're seeing the Trump administration make a push, including through DOGE, where AI is part of the process of identifying some of these areas of interest, areas of conflict. Is it possible that we could meaningfully efficientize government through these technological mechanisms, that there could be massive headcount decreases, but not any sort of substantial decrease in the quality of services? I think time will tell, but it is very interesting to see at the same time this push for reform, these issues with the debt and deficit, and also this potentially transformative technology in the form of AI.
Absolutely. DOGE is really bringing a lot of unknown and new factors into the government. We're also seeing all those very young workers for the DOGE as well. Nathan Wester, national political reporter for the Epoch Times, thank you.
Thanks as always.
Moving on now, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is in Germany today. He'll spend most of the week in Europe to attend different NATO meetings in Brussels. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazar has more on Hegseth's trip.
Get back to basics. Warfighting, readiness, accountability.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says he's representing the guidance given by President Trump. That's to raise standards in the military, bring back meritocracy, and more. On Wednesday, Hegseth is set to become the first member of the new Trump administration to visit the NATO headquarters in Brussels. He laid out the goals of his trip.
Reestablishing deterrence, whether it is the deterrence that this command has been committed to in what's happening in Ukraine or throughout the African continent with the CCP is trying to do, leaning forward with allies and partners to make sure America's strength is amplified.
Hegseth will first take part in a meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, he's set to attend a meeting with NATO defense ministers. While still in Germany, Hegseth was asked what the biggest threat to the U.S. is at the moment.
Right now, the biggest threat was securing our own border, which we are addressing rapidly. And I'm proud of what NORTHCOM has done and the Defense Department has done, is shifting there. You don't have a country if you don't have borders, as the president has pointed out. And we've been defending other people's borders for a long time. Time to defend ours.
The defense secretary is not expected to make any announcement on new weapons for Ukraine while attending this week's meetings. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
When we come back, nearly 1 billion flowers inspected in Miami are now on their way to becoming a Valentine's Day surprise. We'll have that and more after the break.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
I am blind, but I need not see. I know this road is there for me. If I'm really free.
All right, anyone who has tried to buy any eggs recently has likely noticed the skyrocketing prices. In just the last year, the cost of eggs jumped nearly 37%. This according to the Consumer Price Index. But what's causing this spike in costs? Take a look.
Egg prices have hit a record high, and consumers are noticeably frustrated.
I'm in Walmart right now. Check this out. This is 12 eggs. Cage-free large white. Great value. This is the cheapest brand.
So what's causing this? Between November and December, prices jumped 14% due to a shortage of eggs. At the end of last year, the average cost of a dozen eggs was $4.15, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. As of February 7th, those costs have nearly doubled, jumping to $7.34, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But some shoppers are seeing prices much higher than that average.
How did it jump from $5 to $18, almost $20? This gotta stop.
The highly contagious avian flu is fueling the nationwide shortage of eggs, causing the deaths of 130 million birds since 2022.
You can have two.
Frank Hilliker, the owner of Hilliker Ranch in Lakeside, California, is limiting how many eggs customers can buy.
If you have a healthy farm, you're producing the same amount of eggs you've always produced. It's just those eggs have gotten a lot more valuable.
Big box retailers like Trader Joe's and Costco are also limiting their sales of eggs. The shortage has even led to egg thefts. In Pennsylvania, thieves stole about 100,000 eggs from a distribution trailer. And recently, outside of Seattle, thieves caught on camera stealing hundreds of eggs from Luna Park Cafe.
We couldn't order any eggs, so we had to drive around all the markets to get the egg.
Unfortunately, these high costs aren't expected to come down anytime soon. The USDA says prices are expected to rise another 20% this year.
Your yearly Valentine flowers have arrived in Miami. In the run-up to February 14th, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection says agricultural specialists at Miami International Airport have processed about 940 million stems of cut flowers. About 90% of the fresh cut flowers sold for Valentine's Day in the U.S. come through Miami each year, and the other 10% pass through L.A. Roses, carnations, pompons, and baby's breath arrive on hundreds of flights, mostly from Colombia and Ecuador. They arrive in Miami on their journey to florists and supermarkets all across the U.S. and Canada. Up next, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is creating another oversight task force to safeguard national interests. That and more in the next hour of Newsroom. Stay with us.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now. With your gift of $19 a month, we'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers.
Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free adult education centers near you.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is creating another oversight task force to safeguard national interest. President Trump welcomes the King of Jordan to the White House. What Trump says about his rebuilding plans for the Gaza Strip. The Department of Homeland Security fires 4 FEMA employees today over a $59 million payment, including the chief financial officer. New York City Mayor Eric Adams responds after the Justice Department orders federal prosecutors in Manhattan to drop the corruption charges against him. Vice President J.D. Vance emphasizes the U.S.'s leading role in AI technology at an international summit in Paris. He also warns EU leaders today about over-regulations and censorship practices that stifle businesses in the EU. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is set to attend multiple NATO meetings this week. He's the first Trump administration official to visit the alliance's headquarters. What the goals of his trip are.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Donald Trump is welcoming the King of Jordan to the White House. This all comes as the Middle East country is expected to play a major role in Trump's plans to rebuild Gaza.
And we'll be working on the rest with Egypt. I think you're going to see some great progress. I think with Jordan, you're going to see some great progress. 3 of us, and we'll have some others helping, and we're going to have some others at a very high level helping, and the whole thing will come. It's not a complex thing to do. And with the United States being in control of that piece of land, a fairly large piece of land, you're going to have stability in the Middle East for the first time. And the Palestinians, or the people that live now in Gaza, will be living beautifully in another location. They're going to be living safely. They're not going to be killed, murdered, and having to leave every 10 years, because I've been watching this for so many years. It's nothing but trouble. Everyone's being killed. They're being robbed. It's like living in hell. And they're going to end up having a great home, great families that don't have to get mugged and killed and beaten up and harassed by Hamas and everybody else. And I know we'll be able to work something. And what you just said about the 2000 is fantastic. It's so beautiful. It's music to my ears. But we're going to be able to work something, and I know we'll be able to work something also with I believe, not 100%, but 99%. We're going to work out something with Egypt.
How is the U.S. going to own Gaza? Your White House has made clear taxpayer dollars won't be used for this. So what money are you going to use to buy Gaza?
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it. And we're going to run it very properly, and eventually we'll have economic development at a very large scale, maybe the largest scale on that site. And we'll have lots of good things built there, including hotels and office buildings and housing and other things. And we'll make that site into what it should be. And the people from Gaza who wouldn't be able to be there for years, because you're talking about just to get it and prepare it and to take care of all of the problems that currently it has. As you know, tunnels, and people are in those tunnels, and you have some good people and some bad people, and you may have hostages right now. You know, you have the hostages possibly there. They don't know where they are. And, you know, I have a Saturday deadline, and I don't think they're going to make the deadline personally. I think they want to play tough guy, but we'll see how tough they are. But it's going to be a wonderful thing. It's going to be wonderful for the Middle East. I think it'll turn the Middle East. I think you're going to have peace in the Middle East. You're going to eventually have peace in the Middle East.
Mr. President, you were saying that Palestinians will live somewhere else safe. Where exactly do you want them to live?
Well, it's not where I want them to live. It's going to be where we ultimately choose as a group. And I believe we'll have a parcel of land in Jordan. I believe we'll have a parcel of land in Egypt. We may have someplace else, but I think when we finish our talks, we'll have a place where they're going to live very happily and very safely. And, you know, don't forget, they only want to be on the Gaza Strip because they don't know anything else. They never had an alternative. And they don't want to be on the Gaza Strip, but they have no choice. They have to be. And they're being killed there at levels that nobody's ever seen. No place in the world is like as dangerous as the Gaza Strip. They don't want to be there. They have no alternative. When they have an alternative, not one person will want to stay where they are. Nobody wants to stay there. They're living in hell. It's a death trap.
And House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, along with his colleagues, is creating another oversight task force to safeguard national interest. Let's take a look.
Mental but pivotal. It is with profound honor that I have been entrusted by Speaker Mike Johnson and Chairman James Comer to lead the House Oversight Task Force on Declassification of Federal Secrets. Together with the help of the White House, our intelligence allies, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, we will be conducting investigations into the following: the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King, unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs, unidentified submerged objects, also known as USOs, the Epstein client list, the origins of COVID-19, and the 9/11 files. This task force will be a beacon of bipartisanship. On the Republican side, Representatives Burchett, Boebert, Burleson, Crane, Gill, and Mace will be joining me, although I'd like to note that I'm expanding this to the entire governing body and will be allowing certain members to waive on. Our first hearing is set for March. The date will be announced soon, and we've already initiated close to a dozen communications with various agencies, to include Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice and the Secretary of State. This will no longer be a task force that makes bold promises only to fade into irrelevance or send strongly worded letters. This will be a relentless pursuit of truth and transparency, and we will not stop until the American people have the answers they deserve. We will cut through the bureaucracy, challenge the stonewalling, and ensure that the American people finally get the truth that they have been denied for too long. If we are to endure and thrive as a nation, we must restore trust through transparency. The American people must be trusted to think for themselves, to form their own judgments from the truth that they are entitled to know. We've been treated like children for too long and kept in the dark by those we elected to serve us. It is my solemn duty to begin mending this trust, to form a new relationship between the government and the governed. Let us embark on this journey together towards a government that does not serve, but one that enlightens. That does not just serve, but one that enlightens. Trust through transparency, that begins now. Without further ado, we'd like to open it up for questions, as I'm sure many of you have those. Hands up.
Thank you, Mary. Obviously, your goals are aligned with the administration's on the declassification of Martin Luther King and the Kennedys. How would you handle if you end up, whether it's President Trump or Attorney General Bondi or T&I Gabbard, if they disagree with what you're looking to declassify on a certain topic, whether it's UAPs or 9/11 or something like that? How would you handle if there's some stuff that they don't necessarily want?
Well, certainly, I think that they'd be supportive, being that they're advocating for this, but also I want to remind the American people that this is bipartisan. There's also Democrats that are looking into answering these very questions, but certainly we would share that information with the American people. This is about transparency, and I think, again, as I stated, for far too long, there's been a massive push to keep the American people in the dark, and that ends today. Chairman?
The task force does not have subpoena power. I do. The task force is going to be subsidiary of the full oversight committee. So if we have to issue one, Congresswoman Luna, we'll discuss it and we'll take appropriate action.
But in full transparency, we have a great working relationship, as I stated earlier, with the White House, with the DOJ, with the Secretary of Defense, and the Secretary of State. The incoming FBI director, I think, will be very supportive. And we've also been told that the CIA director is very supportive. To put it in perspective, I think that this issue transcends not just one administration, but multiple administrations. And it hasn't been until now that we've been able to get people actually in positions of power that will push for transparency. Now, if I find that different entities in the various intelligence agencies are stonewalling us, I'm going to make that known to the American people. But as of right now, we are cautiously optimistic.
What's your priority list? Is Epstein, 9/11?
Our first investigation will be announced, but it's going to be covering on a thorough investigation into the John F. Kennedy assassination. And I can tell you, based on what I've been seeing so far, the initial hearing that was actually held here in Congress was actually faulty in the single bullet theory. I believe that there were 2 shooters, and we should be finding more information as we are able to gain access into the SCIF, hopefully before the files are actually released to the public.
Thank you for doing this. Have you identified the Democrats who will sit on the task force, and could you talk a little bit more about the role of Democrats?
Yeah, so again, this is a bipartisan commission. Remember, JFK was a Democrat, RFK was a Democrat, and I'm sure that I think the entire conference has a question on what actually happened with Dr. Martin Luther King, but also UAPs. You guys know that that was the biggest bipartisan bicameral hearing that we've ever had, I think, in congressional history. I do not know who their members are yet. They've noticed it, but they're taking this very seriously. This is not a conspiracy theory investigating committee. We're actually looking to present truth to the American people. And it's in my opinion that no one person elected to office is more important or more qualified to look at the information that they've been hiding from us. And so we look to push for that transparency.
What sort of witnesses will you expect to have at your hearings? I know you said the first one's in March. Would that be department heads, former employees of various agencies?
Would you like to jump in? Yeah, I was going to say, based on what we're actually looking to do with the JFK investigation, I'm looking to actually bring in some of the attending physicians at the initial assassination, and then also people that had been on the various commissions looking into, like the Warren Commission looking into the initial assassinations. There's been conflicting evidence, and I think that even the FBI at the time reported some anomalies in the initial autopsy at Bethesda, Maryland. All of those, though, seem to have been rinsed and repeated in the media to push a certain narrative that we don't agree with. And so I think that in order to put to bed some of the theories that have been out there on John F. Kennedy, we have to know the full truth. And the full truth starts with transparency. And that's why these files is so important for the American people to read for themselves. The biggest information problems that we've had with UAPs is the amount of stonewalling, stovepiping, and also it seems that there is this push to gaslight the American people into looking at the evidence and then not fully believing it. I think for us, if we're writing the budget, for example, into the Pentagon, if we're writing the budget overall for whatever programs might be out there, why is it that members of Congress who are given a top secret security clearance are being denied access? That's not a free and true government. And so for us, especially being that we have now a Secretary of State who's actually open to declassification and Marco Rubio, we're hoping to present that information and at least acknowledge it from a government perspective that we are not alone, but also let's see what the evidence is. Yes, in fact, the letters went out this morning, not just on RFK, JFK, and MLK, but on everything that I had listed above to include UAPs, Epstein, and 9/11 and COVID, to the State Department, Department of Defense, CIA, and then also we'll be sending some to the FBI, and letters have also gone out to the NSA. Well, what's interesting on that specific committee is what, to my understanding, when they actually brought in expert witnesses, they weren't actually people that were in attendance to the initial autopsy at Bethesda. But also, this is a bigger committee than just the JFK assassinations. We're also expanding into Epstein, COVID origins, 9/11s, and then UAPs and USOs. And so before, where we initially had some of these hearings, this is going to be an encompassing committee that's going to work directly with the White House on information that they're declassifying. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Correct. Correct. There's actually 3 different government investigations into the JFK assassination. But again, this committee is expanding not just there, but outwards into other fields. And again, we're working directly with the White House. In previous investigations, they didn't have access to the information that we are going to have access to. And so that's a big deal, especially if you're looking at what truly happened with JFK. I already have a top secret clearance. All members of Congress have a TSCI. The question is do we get SAP access, of which Chairman Comer has been very supportive and will be getting SAP access as well. Okay, 2 more and then we're going to wrap it up.
Obviously, some of the questions on some of these topics, whether it's Jeffrey Epstein or COVID-19, the questions are obvious. What specifically, though, are the questions you're looking to get answered with regards to September 11th?
We just want the truth. How much did the CIA know in advance? But also remember, when you have only certain information that's shared with the American people, that's when conspiracy theories happen. And it's in my opinion that conspiracy theories can be detrimental. It doesn't mean that in the last couple of months we haven't been right on a few things, but what I will say is I think that we deserve to give this information to the American people. I don't agree with the stonewalling that's occurred. And also, how do we prevent things like it from happening in the future? And we have to know the full picture, and the American people deserve to know that as well. I don't know what information DOGE would have, but I would encourage them if they have anything on JFK, Epstein, or anything in between that they bring it to our office immediately. Okay, 1 more and then we'll wrap it up. Of course.
Well, we have a lot of questions. Some of the people in the mayor's administration have been vocal that they weren't going to comply with federal law, that they were going to continue to act as sanctuary cities. We want to know about coordination and communication they had between the previous administration. How did so many of these illegals get there? Who was paying for it? Who were they communicating with to be able to provide housing and so many other benefits to such a large population of people? Just the basic questions we all have. Who was paying for it? Who was leading the efforts to transport the illegals from wherever their entry point was in the United States to these sanctuary cities? And are the mayors going to comply with federal law now? Are they going to work with Tom Homan and the national security groups in the Trump administration to try to deport the criminal illegals and stop being a sanctuary city? Worried about what?
Do we feel less worried about Eric Adams?
Eric Adams, I mean, he was one of the first mayors to bring up the crisis situation, the fiscal impact on the city. So I think he would be a very good witness, and we have a lot of questions for him, just like we do the other 3 mayors. So,
all right, 1 last question, then we're going to wrap it up. News Nation, let's go.
Can I ask about your relationship with whistleblowers? Is it going to be the normal process that Oversight typically does, or would this be? Are you going to create a separate avenue for the task force?
I mean, we're all about the normal process, but look, if you have information and it's credible, we've always approached it in that I'd like to be the person that does the interviews for it, mainly because, especially with stuff like this, we want to make sure that there's, not bad actors that are pushing false information to create a narrative that's simply not there. And so, every whistleblower that does come forward, as of right now, there's people that have been publicly out there, for example, on the JFK stuff, that were actually present in the room at the operating room where he was actually brought to right after the shooting. So we hope to bring those people in to testify. And again, these hearings will be open to the public. I am also expanding this to the entire conference. So if someone's going to take this seriously and look at it through an investigative lens and get answers for the American people, they are welcome to ask questions of the witnesses, and you guys will all receive notice of that.
And we'll work with anyone who currently works with the federal government that wants to declare whistleblower status and receive whistleblower protection, if that's what they're interested in doing. And I don't think they're going to face the type of retaliation that the previous administration gave whistleblowers, particularly the IRS whistleblowers that blew the whistle on the cover-up of the Biden family.
And I'd also like to close with this. If you are an independent investigator, we are being told that the FBI has now located thousands of pages of documents that they lost before, specifically relating to JFK. We are going to get through as much as we can. We have a great team of attorneys. We have a great team of investigators looking into this, but it doesn't mean that we won't accept help from the public. And so we will be setting up a place for collection for people to present information. But again, this is about transparency. The government works for us. There have been people, I think, in power for too long that try to silo us and keep us in the dark, but that stops today. You're seeing that same message come out of the White House, out of the CIA, the FBI, and every other agency in between. So we are very happy to have the support of all of those individuals, happy to have the support of Chairman Comer and Speaker Johnson. And if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Oversight Comms, and we'd be happy to answer those at that time. Thank you, guys.
Comer, along with his colleague Florida Representative Anna Paulina Luna, announcing a new oversight task force. They're going to be investigating a lot. They say they're going to investigate JFK, RFK, MLK, UAPs. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of that. All right, now coming up, egg prices have hit a record high. We'll be hearing what consumers have to say about that. And a new California bill could mean tougher penalties for looters and scammers in wildfire zones. Meanwhile, FEMA will be beginning wildfire cleanup efforts on private properties this week. What homeowners need to know, that and more after the break.
Right now at Mathis Home, buy one Lazy Boy recliner, get the second one free. That's right, buy one recliner, get the matching recliner absolutely free. Recliner pairs start at just $7.99. It's your chance to save on the handcrafted quality and comfort that Lazy Boy is famous for. And get 2 great chairs for one low price. They're all in stock now with easy financing and fast free delivery. Buy one, get one free on Lazy Boy recliners, only at Mathis Home.
I'm Ilka. I live with my daughter and with my grandchildren. There's a sense of comfort that comes with eating a good meal. We try to make the most, of what we have. We have rent to pay, and then there are lights and there are gas. And while my daughter and I both work, it still just doesn't seem like there's enough to go around sometimes.
Every day, millions of our neighbors face hunger, including 1 in 5 children, and food costs keep rising. Please call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Your monthly support can fill plates with nutritious food for families across the country and in your community, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks and volunteers.
If you were over and playing with us, you were part of our family and you were going to eat. A real cook can take nothing and make something.
No one should ever have to wonder if they will have enough to eat, and our neighbors are working hard to feed their families every day. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. Use your credit card and you'll get this exclusive canvas grocery bag as a thank you for joining hands with people across America to help end hunger.
Some of the lessons that I hope that my family will take, it is important to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I have carried on the tradition of loving people through food.
Please call right now or go online to make a monthly gift at helpfeedingamerica.org. Your support helps our neighbors bring food home to their families.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
Welcome back to Newsroom. The chairman of the Federal Reserve testified in his first of 2 congressional hearings today. And NTD correspondent Jason Blair now joins us live from Capitol Hill. Jason, it's good to see you. What are the takeaways from today?
Hey, yeah, that's right. Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, was on Capitol Hill today. He told the Senate Banking Committee that the economy overall looks like it's heading in a healthy direction. It's in pretty good shape. And that, he says, indicators are indicating that conditions in the labor market are also in balance. Earlier today in the Senate, Jerome did testify. Here's what he said about the economy earlier this morning.
Recent indicators suggest that economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace. GDP rose 2.5% in 2024, bolstered by resilient consumer spending. Investment in equipment and intangibles appears to have declined in the fourth quarter, but was solid for the year overall.
And another big question people have is, what about interest rates? So Powell said that they are pretty much in no rush to make any adjustments. The central bank isn't in any hurry to make any adjustments related to interest rates. Here's what he said about that.
With our policy stance now significantly less restrictive than it had been, and the economy remaining strong, we do not need to be in a hurry to adjust our policy stance.
And during the hearing, both the chairman and ranking member expressed concerns about politics kind of seeping in to the Federal Reserve. Chairman Scott talked about back in 2020 at the beginning of the Biden administration that, quote, green financing and climate change were influencing the Fed. And then when the Trump administration came in, they flip-flopped on that. Also, ranking member Senator Warren expressed concerns about possible lack of banking oversight. Here's an exchange between Warren and Powell earlier today. Have a look.
Chair Powell, if the CFPB isn't on the job right now, then who is administering JP Morgan or Wells Fargo's consumer compliance exams to ensure that they are following the law?
Senator, I believe that, and you would know, that Dodd-Frank moved all authority for examinations in the consumer space to the CFPB. We still have some jurisdiction.
We'll talk about that in a sec. But the answer to my question, please. If the CFPB is not there examining these giant banks to make sure they are following the laws on not cheating consumers, who is doing that job?
I can say no other federal regulator.
No one, in other words.
So some Republicans are saying that the CFPB has too much overreach, and it is pretty clear that the CFPB is undergoing some major changes right now under the Trump administration.
Jason, I want to ask you this too. Mortgage rates are currently inflated. Were there any hints from Mr. Powell about how those could change in the near future?
Yeah, mortgage rates. So Powell did say that due to the central bank's limited influence over long-term interest rates, it doesn't look like mortgage rates are going to be coming down anytime soon. And also due to housing shortages in some parts of the nation, housing costs are also likely to stay high. Back to you.
Jason, thank you for the update. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA for short, fired its chief financial officer and 3 other employees today. In a statement, the Department of Homeland Security said the 4 individuals, quote, unilaterally made egregious payments for New York City hotels in order to house migrants. The spokesperson said, quote, DHS will not sit idly and allow deep state activists to undermine the will and safety of the American people. The news comes one day after the head of DOGE, Elon Musk, announced they uncovered a $59 million payment made last week. He said spending this money violated the law. And fresh numbers are in from Elon Musk's DOGE, showing more than $1 billion in cuts, this after just 3 short weeks. One of the biggest cost-saving measures was the cancellation of more than 100 contracts related to diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. The White House estimates that scrapping these contracts alone saved over $1 billion. Other major cuts include a nearly $750 million contract for a new embassy in South Sudan. Smaller cuts hit political subscriptions worth $500,000 and $26 million in contracts for executive coaching and strategic communication. DOGE revealed an additional $100 million in DEI-related training grants from the Department of Education, plus $880 million in other contracts tied to DEI programs. The Department of Agriculture also saw some cuts, including $9 million in contracts. One affected project is titled Central American Gender Assessment Consultant Services. And another legal setback for one of President Trump's executive orders. A federal judge is temporarily blocking Trump's order targeting gender ideology at America's health agencies. As part of the judge's restraining order, the Department of Health and Human Services, the CDC, and the FDA must restore web pages that they took down in compliance with Trump's order. Trump's executive order said that the U.S. recognizes only two sexes and that health agencies have to take down information that promote gender ideology. The nonprofit group Doctors for America sued over Trump's order. Now, they argued that taking down these web pages hindered their ability to treat patients and violated federal law. U.S. District Judge John Bates ordered the three health agencies to restore their previous web pages by the end of today. The judge's order will remain in place while the lawsuit unfolds. Moving on now, anyone who has tried to buy eggs recently has likely noticed some skyrocketing prices. In just the last year alone, the cost of eggs jumped nearly 37%, this according to the Consumer Price Index. But what's behind the spike in costs? Take a look.
Egg prices have hit a record high, and consumers are noticeably frustrated.
I'm in Walmart right now. Check this out. This is 12 eggs. Cage-free, large white. Great value. This is the cheapest brand.
So what's causing this? Between November and December, prices jumped 14% due to a shortage of eggs. At the end of last year, the average cost of a dozen eggs was $4.15, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. As of February 7th, those costs have nearly doubled, jumping to $7.34, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But some shoppers are seeing prices much higher than that average.
How did it jump from $5 to $18, almost $20? This gotta stop.
The highly contagious avian flu is fueling the nationwide shortage of eggs, causing the deaths of 130 million birds since 2022.
You can have two.
Frank Hilliker, the owner of Hilliker Ranch in Lakeside, California, is limiting how many eggs customers can buy.
If you have a healthy farm, you're producing the same amount of eggs you've always produced. It's just those eggs have gotten a lot more valuable.
Big box retailers like Trader Joe's and Costco are also limiting their sales of eggs. The shortage has even led to egg thefts. In Pennsylvania, thieves stole about 100,000 eggs from a distribution trailer. And recently, outside of Seattle, thieves caught on camera stealing hundreds of eggs from Luna Park Cafe.
We couldn't order any eggs, so we had to drive around all the markets to get the egg.
Unfortunately, these high costs aren't expected to come down anytime soon. The USDA says prices are expected to rise another 20% this year.
And some more bad news. Winter weather is back for much of the United States. 3 major storms are on deck this week. The first storm will reach the East Coast today. Parts of the Appalachians, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast will be hit with snow and freezing rain through at least Wednesday morning. Ice will be the storm's greatest hazard. The next storm will form in the central U.S. Snow, ice, and rain are expected in the plains tonight and into Wednesday morning. It will quickly expand to encompass much of the Midwest and parts of the Northeast by Wednesday evening. Then on Thursday, a third storm will slam into California. The atmospheric river-fueled storm presents a serious flood threat to much of the state. The storm will also bring heavy snow to California's Sierra Nevada and mountains to the west. It will track east Thursday night and Friday and then reach the plains by early Saturday morning. And Virginia's governor declared a state of emergency yesterday ahead of their storm. The National Weather Service said travel would become treacherous today through early tomorrow in much of Virginia and West Virginia. Moving on now, California lawmakers are pushing for a new bill to impose tougher penalties on looting and impersonating first responders in wildfire zones. As officials tackle a surge in scams from January's deadly wildfires, FEMA and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers are starting efforts to remove debris. NTD's Christina Corona has more.
LA County District Attorney Nathan Hochman and state lawmakers announced a new bill on Monday, AB 469, to combat looters and scammers in fire zones. The proposed law would make such crimes a felony with longer prison sentences.
What it does is it strengthens the laws of looting. So now it's a felony. Now you can go to state prison if you engage in these acts of looting during a state of emergency. It strengthened the laws It strengthens the laws dealing with impersonating a firefighter, a police officer, a National Guardsman during this state of emergency.
The bill would make looting a felony with up to 4 years in prison, addressing scams in the Palisade and Eaton fire zones. January's wildfires led to over 24 looting arrests, including suspects posing as firefighters to access evacuated homes.
When people see a firefighter or other first responder during an emergency, they need to know with absolute certainty that the uniform and equipment is being worn and used by someone who is sworn to protect.
Hochman said the law closes loopholes such as entering evacuated homes or abandoned cars during emergencies. It also remains in effect through recovery and rebuilding.
That if they want to engage in their despicable acts during a state of emergency, they will be held maximally accountable.
FEMA and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers started Tuesday to remove fire debris from private properties damaged in the January wildfires. The cleanup, in partnership with LA County, includes removing ash, hazardous trees, and damaged structures for those who submitted right of entry forms. Once the EPA clears hazardous material, the Corps can begin removing debris from residential properties destroyed in the fires. Right of entry forms are available online at recovery.lacounty.gov/debris-removal. LA County has received over 7,300 right of entry forms, which are due by March 31st. Reporting from the city of El Monte, Christina Corona, NTD News.
Here's a burning question for you. Is it the Gulf of America or is it the Gulf of Mexico? Well, now Google says that it is indeed the Gulf of America. If you're like a lot of people, when President Donald Trump changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico, you probably immediately went to check Google Maps, and it still said Gulf of Mexico, but not anymore. The company says its policy is to change names when they have been updated by official government sources. Trump changed the name through an executive order last month, and Google Maps is now reflecting that change. But users in Mexico will still see the name Gulf of Mexico, and everywhere else, users will see both names. Trump also changed the name of Mount Denali in Alaska back to Mount McKinley. Google said it would change that on its maps, but it has yet to happen. Former President Barack Obama made the change to Mount Denali in 2015 in order to honor the state's native people. As for what map and globe makers do, well, that decision is up to them. When we come back, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is set to attend multiple NATO meetings this week. We'll talk more about what the goals of his trip are. And Britain will not rush into retaliatory measures following President Trump's steel tariffs. Find out why after the break.
There's always a searching process for beauty. You know it when you see it.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness. 2025, the 5th NTD International Photography Competition. Capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that we're making it through. My employees and I want to thank you for your continued support by extending our wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows only $14.98. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.98. But it gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows $29.98 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including my standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. Not only that, order $75 or more, ship absolutely free.
From all of us here at MyPillow,
My dad was a farmer, and when I saw him on a horse, the guy was bigger than life. One of the things that he had a hard time doing was showing the emotion. Maybe it was because the way he was raised, or believing that men provide and they don't struggle. But we all struggle. I want to show emotion to my kids. I want them to know when I'm happy, I want them to know when I'm sad, and I want them to see me working through things. The biggest reward I get from being a dad is watching my kids accomplish a goal, watching them light up. Nothing brings a bigger smile to my face. So I make my kids a priority. Whether it's hitting a baseball, a dance rehearsal, you name it, I'm there. They're gonna remember that they grew up loved. Be brave. Be there every day. And allow your kids to know that it's okay to struggle. That even dad doesn't know the answer sometimes, but we're gonna figure it out together.
Former Trump advisor Steve Bannon pleaded guilty today in the border wall funding case. This case involves a private fundraising drive known as We Build the Wall during President Trump's first term. As part of the plea deal, Bannon avoids jail time, but he's barred from fundraising for or running any charitable organization with assets in New York State. New York prosecutors charged Bannon with money laundering and conspiracy. He's accused of deceiving donors in 2019 who contributed more than $15 million to the private border wall fundraising drive. Bannon had previously pleaded not guilty and called the case a political persecution. Coming out of the courthouse today, Bannon called on the Justice Department to investigate New York Attorney General Letitia James and Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Bannon's trial is scheduled for March 4th, and a pretrial conference is scheduled for later today in New York State Criminal Court. He talked to media outside the courthouse.
The existential threat to President Trump's administration is not in federal court. What President Trump is doing is constitutional. The appellate courts will say that. The Supreme Court will say that. The existential threat to President Trump's administration, and I mean DOGE, Elon Musk, Secretary of Treasury Bessent, Russ Vought, Stephen Miller, all of his people. The existential threat is right here in this city. It is the queen of lawfare. It's Letitia James. Right now, Soros has a DA that's running unopposed. He can call a grand jury at any time. He can set up criminal charges on the most bogus efforts. Letitia James runs this deal. She's got a pliant media right here, pliant left-wing media. She's got a jury pool of only left-wing radicals in the Upper West Side of this city. And she's got the judges. She's got all of it. And I'm calling on right now the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to begin an immediate criminal investigation into Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, all of it for what they did to President Trump.
Staying here in New York, the Justice Department has directed federal prosecutors to drop corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Adams maintains that he's innocent, telling reporters this afternoon that it's time for the city to move forward.
My fellow New Yorkers, as you may have heard, the Department of Justice has directed that the case against me be dismissed, finally ending a months-long saga that put me, my family, and this city through an unnecessary ordeal. As I said from the outset, I never broke the law, and I never would. I would never put any personal benefit above my solemn responsibility as your mayor.
Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove said the case was stopping the mayor from assisting the Trump administration to crack down on illegal immigration. Adams was a close ally of President Joe Biden when he began his mayoral term in 2022. After Biden's DOJ indicted the former police captain, Adams said he had been unfairly targeted over his criticism of the president's immigration policies. Trump pleaded not guilty to 4 sets of criminal indictments in 2023. He has also argued the charges against him were politically motivated as well. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is in Germany today. He'll spend most of the week in Europe, attending different NATO meetings in Brussels. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazar has more.
Get back to basics. Warfighting, readiness, accountability.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says he's representing the guidance given by President Trump.
That's to raise standards in the military, bring back meritocracy, and more. On Wednesday, Hegseth is set to become the first member of the new Trump administration to visit the NATO headquarters in Brussels. He laid out the goals of his trip.
Reestablishing deterrence, whether it is the deterrence that this command has been committed to in what's happening in Ukraine or throughout the African continent with the CCP is trying to do, leaning forward with allies and partners to make sure America's strength is amplified.
Hegseth will first take part in a meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, he's set to attend a meeting with NATO defense ministers. While still in Germany, Hegseth was asked what the biggest threat to the U.S. is at the moment.
Right now, the biggest threat was securing our own border, which we are addressing rapidly. And I'm proud of what Northcom has done and the Defense Department has done, is shifting there. You don't have a country if you don't have borders, as the president has pointed out. And we've been defending other people's borders for a long time. Time to defend ours.
The defense secretary is not expected to make any announcement on new weapons for Ukraine while attending this week's meetings. Ariane Pastar, NTD News.
Vice President J.D. Vance gave a speech at the AI summit in Paris today. He reaffirmed the Trump administration's push for U.S. AI dominance, but he also warned the EU about existing overregulation and censorship. NTD's international correspondent David Vives has the story.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance cautioned European leaders on Tuesday that excessive AI regulation could hinder technological progress. Speaking at a global AI summit, Vance criticized the European Union's stringent approach, warning that overregulation stifles innovation, particularly for smaller companies.
America wants to partner with all of you, and we want to embark on the AI revolution before us with a spirit of openness and collaboration. But to create that kind of trust, we need international regulatory regimes that fosters the creation of AI technology rather than strangles it.
The AI summit in Paris focused on potential AI-based innovations and new investments, a shift from debates over AI safety concerns to global competition. The US Vice President's remarks became a topic of discussion in France's parliament and were met with mixed reactions from lawmakers.
We feel that there is a positive potential of artificial intelligence, like better health care, maybe better education. But there are some issues. What if our personal data are owned by big tech companies? This is about privacy. I mean, there's a possibility that some people might possess very private data about you. That's why I disagree with Mr. Vance. This is what happens with total freedom here. We need standards.
It's true. In France, we want to overregulate before even knowing what we're talking about, before seeing what evolves. Therefore, we are less competitive. I dare to say it. And I agree this overregulation is working against us, against our companies' ability to innovate.
Vance reaffirmed the Trump administration's commitment to U.S. dominance in AI, rejecting EU-style content moderation as authoritarian censorship. French President Emmanuel Macron, who hosted the summit, urged the EU to reduce bureaucracy and create a more innovation-friendly environment. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Across the pond, President Trump's steel tariffs are expected to heavily impact the British steel industry. But so far, the UK is not looking to respond in kind, first seeking to work out a trade deal with the US. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more from London.
The British government says it won't rush into retaliatory measures following President Trump's decision to place tariffs on all steel imports coming into the United States. This while the British steel industry warns about the impact they expect the tariffs to have.
What British industry needs and deserves is not a knee-jerk reaction, but a cool and clear-headed sense of the UK's national interest based on a full assessment of all the implications of the US's actions.
Alexander added that the UK has a strong and balanced trade relationship with the US and stands ready to work with Trump to find a solution that works for both Britain and America. Britain exported over 183,000 tons of steel to the US in 2023, the last full year for which figures are available. Figures from trade body UK Steel showed the amount was slightly less for the first 11 months of 2024. UK Steel warned the 25% tariff would be a devastating blow to the industry. British ministers are holding talks with the industry before the tariffs are set to begin on March 12th.
Obviously, we'll have to see what comes out of the US and what that means to UK Steel, but this government is committed to supporting that industry into the future.
UK Steel Director General Gareth Stace said Trump has taken a sledgehammer to free trade, with huge ramifications for the steel sector globally. Trump says the measures are necessary to protect the US steel industry and national security. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is hoping to visit Washington in the coming weeks for face-to-face talks with Trump, but no details have yet been confirmed on the timing of the trip. The decision to impose tariffs on steel presents an early challenge for the UK's new ambassador to the US, Lord Mandelson. He told the BBC Trump has a very strong and clear mandate for change in the United States. Mandelson said that doesn't mean Britain has to agree with every detail, but it does have to respect and understand what drives Trump. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
When we come back, one of the world's largest rare earth projects could be unleashed in Greenland. Find out more about that after this break.
Being a cowboy, well, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I had heard many times that heart disease is the #1 killer. It went in one ear and out the other, frankly. I never had a health issue. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. But a few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. By the time I got to the ER, the doctor decided to give me a CAT scan. He said, "I don't think you understand. You are on the verge of a heart attack." I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I received 2 stents in my arteries, stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. With you by our side, together we'll keep fighting this battle. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. Put yourself on your to-do list. It could be the most important thing you ever do. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did. So please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now. Join me as a monthly donor today and help save even more lives. Thank you.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
Welcome back to Newsroom. The company that owns the license to a strategic mineral deposit in Greenland is now hoping for a repeal of a uranium mining ban after next month's election. If the repeal is approved, one of the world's largest rare earth projects could be unleashed. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the site.
President Trump last month voiced renewed interest in acquiring Greenland.
The strategically important Arctic island is home to rare earth metals critical to the national security of the United States.
I think it certainly puts everything related to minerals back on the map. However, President Trump is very clear in his focus and interest about Greenland, and states it's geostrategic, it's about security.
Energy Transition Minerals hold the license for the country's Quantifeld mineral deposit. CEO Daniel Mamadou sees the potential.
Within the next 3 to 5 years, we'll now have refining capacity outside of China. And this is now an alternative market which Quantifeld would be very ready to provide and supply.
Quantifeld is among the world's top 3 rare earth deposits outside China. Mamadou says it's capable of supplying 15% of global production of the critical components used in consumer electronics and weapons.
Our production is not committed to any particular party or any particular country at this stage. We're completely open.
Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Coming up, major airlines want the Trump administration to ground a review that could force airlines to pay passengers for delays. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more stories in the next hour.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brews from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Supermodel Cindy Crawford doesn't just walk the red carpet, she rocks it. At 58, she steals the show and wows the press. Hollywood Life exclaims, Cindy Crawford has never lost her stunning glow. While Page 6 raves, she's still as gorgeous as ever. What is Cindy's secret? It's meaningful beauty. And now with new advanced formulas, it's better than ever. Watch as the appearance of lines and wrinkles are diminished in just weeks. It's no wonder everyone's talking about meaningful beauty.
My makeup artist said, your skin has been looking great lately. What products are you using? And I said, I'm using Meaningful Beauty. And she said, really? I've tried Meaningful Beauty before. I love those products. And then the other lady down in the trailer said, I use Meaningful Beauty. I love it.
Our new and improved formulas deliver age-defying ingredients even deeper into the skin where wrinkles begin. And this brand new offer is Cindy's most exciting ever. Because when you order, you'll get Cindy's exclusive Super Brightening Duo, a $120 value absolutely free. First, you'll get 60 of our Revive and Brighten eye masks, the celebrity secret that visibly smooths, awakens, and restores the area around your eyes. Next, discover the power of our Vitamin C Biphase Brightening Oil for an immediate boost of glamour and glow.
I'm not ashamed to say I am 53 years old. Thank you, Cindy.
The total effect of this free gift package? A red carpet ready complexion. Get all this, a $300 value for just $49.95. But you must act quickly. Results guaranteed or your money back.
So make the call or go online now and put yourself on the path to the most beautiful skin of your life. Trust me, it's worth it.
This special offer is not available anywhere else, so don't delay. Scan the code, go to meaningfulbeauty.com, or call the number on your screen now.
I am blind, but I need not see. I know this road is there for me. If I'm really free.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Our stories today. The Homeland of Department of Security fired 4 FEMA employees today over a $59 million payment, including the chief financial officer. Major airlines want the Trump administration to ground a review that could force airlines to pay passengers for delays. Sam Altman rejecting a $97 billion offer from Elon Musk to buy OpenAI. But whose decision is it? Experts predict the U.S. will boost its coal exports to India now that China has imposed new tariffs.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon. Today, President Trump met with the King of Jordan at the White House. That's as Hamas halted the release of hostages. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley joins us now. Jack, good to see you. What is the latest on the meetings between the two leaders and any mention of the hostages?
Well, Don, the pause on hostages comes as they're being returned, of course, in increasingly poor health. We're seeing an uproar about this already. And Trump said that Hamas is just buying time with the halting of the release of hostages because the hostages have been living in bad shape, with the hostages that are living in bad shape, adding that Hamas is releasing only the healthy hostages first. Hamas said that they're halting the release because Israel delayed a release of Palestinians. Trump doubled down on backing Israel and Gaza's ceasefire deal, which requires Hamas to release the remaining hostages on Saturday at noon local time. Otherwise, Trump says fighting will return. Watch.
And, I have a Saturday deadline, and I don't think they're going to make the deadline personally. I think they want to play tough guy, but we'll see how tough they are. A bully is the weakest person, and they're bullies. Hamas is bullies.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that the Israeli military is already gearing up outside of Gaza, ready to fight the hostages if the hostages aren't released this weekend. Take a look.
The decision I passed unanimously in the cabinet is this. If Hamas does not return our hostages by Saturday noon, the ceasefire will end and the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, will return to intense fighting until Hamas is finally defeated. In the light of Hamas's announcement of its decision to violate the agreement and not release our hostages, last night I ordered the IDF to gather forces inside and around the Gaza Strip. This operation is being carried out at this time. It will be completed in the very near future.
Now, a lot of tension here we can see building up as Trump's already saying that fighting will resume if they won't meet the deadline, and he expects that they won't. Don.
And Jack, was there any discussion on relocating Palestinians in Gaza to Jordan today?
Yes, there was some. All of these discussions are being held behind closed doors, the ones with Trump and the King of Jordan today. Most of their talks, of course, held behind closed doors, but today they did have some discussion in front of the press where King Abdullah committed to take around 2,000 children with cancer and other illnesses in Gaza. Take a look.
One of the things that we can do right away is take 2,000 children that are either cancer children or in very ill state to Jordan as quickly as possible, and then wait for, I think, the Egyptians to present their plan on how we can work with the president to work on the Gaza challenges.
Now, Jordan and Egypt, Trump wants both of them to take in these refugees from Gaza. Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with the Egyptian foreign minister yesterday discussing these plans, after which the foreign ministry said that Arab countries are not on board with Trump's plans for Gaza, but they're going to meet soon and make further determinations later on. The King of Jordan was reluctant to give any position on how he feels until Trump meets with the president and the leader of Egypt. Now, Trump also reiterated today that the war-torn region of Gaza has the worst living conditions in the world. Take a look.
They only want to be on the Gaza Strip because they don't know anything else. They never had an alternative. And they don't want to be on the Gaza Strip, but they have no choice. They have to be. And they're being killed there at levels that nobody's ever seen. No place in the world is as dangerous as the Gaza Strip.
Now, Trump reiterated that with the U.S. taking control of the land, not actually buying it, but taking it through just taking it, Palestinians will live in safe conditions with doctors rather than the constant threat of violence from Hamas terrorists. They'll be living in a parcel in Egypt, a parcel in Jordan as well. Trump elaborated that the U.S. will bring Gaza economic development at a large scale with hotels, office buildings, and housing and new jobs. And most importantly, Gaza will not be occupied by terrorists. Don, back to you.
All right, Jack, thanks for the info. Next, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, fired its chief financial officer and 3 other employees today. In a statement, the Department of Homeland Security said the 4 individuals unilaterally made egregious payments for New York City hotels to house migrants. The spokesperson said, quote, DHS will not sit idly and allow deep state activists to undermine the will and safety of the American people. The news comes one day after the head of DOGE, Elon Musk, announced they uncovered a $59 million payment made last week. He said sending this money violated the law. And fresh numbers are in from Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiencies, showing more than $1 billion in cuts after just 3 weeks. One of the biggest cost-saving measures was the cancellation of more than 100 contracts related to diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. The White House estimates that scrapping these contracts alone saved over $1 billion. Other major cuts include a nearly $750 million contract for a new embassy in South Sudan. Smaller cuts hit political subscriptions worth $500,000 and $26 million in contracts for executive coaching and strategic communication. DOGE revealed an additional $100 million in DEI-related training grants from the Department of Education, plus $880 million in other contracts tied to DEI programs. The Department of Agriculture also saw cuts, including $9 million in contracts. One affected project is titled Central American Gender Assessment Consultant Services. Another legal setback for one of President Trump's executive orders. A federal judge is temporarily blocking Trump's order targeting gender ideology at America's health agencies. As part of the judge's restraining order, the Department of Health and Human Services, CDC, and FDA must restore web pages that they took down in compliance with Trump's order. Trump's executive order said that the U.S. recognizes only 2 sexes and that health agencies have to take down information that promotes gender ideology. The nonprofit group Doctors for America sued over Trump's order. They argue that taking down the web pages hindered their ability to treat patients and violated federal law. U.S. District Judge John Bates ordered the 3 health agencies to restore their previous web pages by the end of day today. The judge's order will remain in place while the lawsuit unfolds. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is in Germany today. He'll spend most of the week in Europe to attend different NATO meetings in Brussels. NTD's international correspondent Aaron Pazdar has more on Hegseth's trip.
Get back to basics. Warfighting, readiness, accountability.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says he's representing the guidance given by President Trump. That's to raise standards in the military, bring back meritocracy, and more. On Wednesday, Hegseth is set to become the first member of the new Trump administration to visit the NATO headquarters in Brussels. He laid out the goals of his trip.
Reestablishing deterrence, whether it is the deterrence that this command has been committed to in what's happening in Ukraine or throughout the African continent with what the CCP is trying to do, leaning forward with allies and partners to make sure America's strength is amplified.
Hegseth will first take part in a meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, he's set to attend a meeting with NATO defense ministers. While still in Germany, Hegseth was asked what the biggest threat to the U.S. is at the moment.
Right now, the biggest threat was securing our own border, which we are addressing rapidly. And I'm proud of what NORTHCOM has done and the Defense Department has done is shifting there. You don't have a country if you don't have borders, as the president has pointed out. And we've been defending other people's borders for a long time. Time to defend ours.
The defense secretary is not expected to make any announcement on new weapons for Ukraine while attending this week's meetings. Ariane Pastar, NTD News.
Former Trump advisor Steve Bannon pleaded guilty today in the border wall funding case. The case involves a private fundraising drive known as We Build the Wall during President Trump's first term. As part of the deal, Bannon avoids jail time, but is barred from fundraising or running any charitable organization with assets in New York State. New York prosecutors charge Bannon with money laundering and conspiracy. He's accused of deceiving donors in 2019 who contributed more than $15 million to the private border wall fundraising drive. Bannon had previously pleaded not guilty and called the case a political persecution. Coming out of the courthouse today, Bannon called on the Justice Department to investigate New York Attorney General Letitia James and Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Bannon's trial is scheduled for March 4th, and a pre-trial conference is scheduled for later today in New York State Criminal Court. He talked to media outside the courthouse.
The existential threat to President Trump's administration is not in federal court. What President Trump is doing is constitutional. The appellate courts will say that. The Supreme Court will say that. The existential threat to President Trump's administration, and I mean DOGE, Elon Musk, Secretary of Treasury Bessent, Russ Vought, Stephen Miller, all of his people. The existential threat is right here in this city. It is the queen of lawfare. It's Letitia James. Right now, Soros has a DA that's running unopposed. He can call a grand jury at any time. He can set up criminal charges on the most bogus efforts. Letitia James runs this deal. She's got a pliant media right here, pliant left-wing media. She's got a jury pool of only left-wing radicals in the Upper West Side of this city. And she's got the judges. She's got all of it. And I'm calling on right now the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to begin an immediate criminal investigation into Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, all of it for what they did to President Trump.
The Justice Department has directed federal prosecutors in New York to drop corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Adams maintains he is innocent, telling reporters this afternoon it's time for the city to move forward.
My fellow New Yorkers, as you may have heard, the Department of Justice has directed that the case against me be dismissed, finally ending a months-long saga that put me, my family, and this city through an unnecessary ordeal. As I said from the outset, I never broke the law, and I never would. I would never put any personal benefit above my solemn responsibility as your mayor.
Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove said the case was stopping the mayor from assisting the Trump administration to crack down on illegal immigration. Adams was a close ally of President Joe Biden when he was beginning his mayoral term in 2022. After Biden's DOJ indicted the former police captain, Adams said he had been unfairly targeted over his criticism of the president's immigration policies. Trump pleaded not guilty to 4 sets of criminal indictments in 2023. He has also argued the charges against him were politically motivated. Heading to break, Sam Altman rejects Elon Musk's $97.4 million bid for OpenAI, though the decision to sell is not up to him. Stay tuned for that.
I can't get a hold of my mom.
I'm sure it's nothing.
I've called her 5 times.
I'm sure she's fine.
Is Grandma okay? Help! I've fallen and I can't get up.
Don't worry, ma'am. We're sending help right now.
Hello?
Hello, this is Life Alert. Your mother had an emergency, and we dispatched paramedics to her home.
Oh my gosh, what happened?
She had a fall, but don't worry. She is safe, and the paramedics are helping her right now.
Thank you.
Life Alert saves a life every 11 minutes. With one simple touch of a button, Life Alert sends help immediately. Whether it's to report a fall, a medical emergency, or an intruder, Life Alert sends first responders fast.
For a free brochure, call 800-382-9846. 800-382-9846. That's 800-382-9846.
Come to Mathis Home today and save big during our presidential savings event with markdowns in every department. We've got all the latest looks for every room in your house at incredible savings. Get huge discounts on hundreds of sofas in all the latest styles. Or shop online and find an unbeatable selection of over 230,000 items. We've got it all. For great quality, all the latest styles, and best value, come to the presidential savings event at Mathis Home.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that we're making it through. My employees and I want to thank you for your continued support by extending our wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows only $14.98. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.98. But it gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows $29.98 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including my standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. Not only that, order $75 or more, ship absolutely free. From all of us here at MyPillow, thanks America!
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
Yeah, so there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Welcome to Business Matters. The Super Bowl registered record ratings for the second year in a row. That's according to preliminary estimates. Sunday's big game on Fox, when the Philadelphia Eagles blew out the Kansas City Chiefs, averaged 126 million users across all platforms, including broadcast TV, streaming, and apps. If the number holds, it marks a 2% increase over last year's record-breaking game on CBS. Fox said viewership peaked in the second quarter when nearly 136 million people were tuned into the game. NBC and Peacock will air next year's Super Bowl from Santa Clara, California on February 8th. And there were very few sweet deals on chocolate this Valentine's Day. In fact, the price tag on chocolate treats may leave a bitter taste in your mouth. One expert says you can expect to see chocolate prices jump around 10 to 20% over last year. The price of cocoa has more than doubled since the beginning of 2024. It hit a record high in December. The cost of manufacturing chocolate has increased by more than 167% in the last 2 years. And retailers have raised prices in response. You may be able to skirt high prices by buying chocolate made with cocoa powder, as more premium chocolate contains a higher percentage of cocoa. Now, major airlines are hoping the Trump administration is the ticket out of paying passengers for delays. In December, the Biden administration launched a review for comments on whether airlines should have to pay passengers for disruptions caused by the carrier. The U.S. Transportation Department wants airlines to pay up to $300 for domestic delays of at least 3 hours and up to $775 for 9-hour delays. The trade group Airlines for America is calling on the Trump administration to end the review. It's arguing the U.S. DOT does not have the legal authority and the requirement would drastically increase airlines' costs and passengers' ticket prices. Boeing has just wrapped up one of its busiest months in years. The plane maker reported 45 deliveries in January. That's up from 30 in the previous month. January marked the most deliveries in a month since 2023 and its busiest January since 2019. Just 1 year ago, Boeing was under major scrutiny and its 737 MAX 9 models were grounded over a mid-air blowout on an Alaska Air flight. January was also Boeing's first full month of production since a 7-week strike that halted most of its commercial aircraft production. Boeing's new orders are also up from the same month a year ago with a total of 34. Dave's Hot Chicken turned down the heat on labor costs with automation and outsourcing. 21 states recently raised minimum wages. In California, the minimum wage increased to $20 an hour. Last year, that's the highest in the U.S. for restaurant jobs. In response, the company convinced restaurant operators during a franchisee conference to switch to automatic dishwashers and contract out cleaning work. The chain also added self-ordering kiosks to California restaurants. Executives were worried customers would find the machines impersonal, but found customers actually order extras through the system. Okay, breaking news. Trump is signing executive orders. Let's tune into that.
I mean, it's really astounding that the interest payments alone on the national debt exceed the Defense Department budget, which is shocking because we spend a lot of money on defense, but if that just keeps going, we're essentially going to bankrupt the country. So what I really want to say is, like, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country, and it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
And also, could you mention some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about $30 million,
right,
et cetera?
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is, what happened at USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their investment advice, perhaps. But just there seems to be mysteriously they get wealthy. We don't know why. Where does it come from? And I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at the taxpayer expense. That's the honest truth of it. So, we're looking at, say, if you look at, say, Treasury, for example, basic controls that should be in place, that are in place in any company, such as making sure that any given payment has a payment categorization code, that there is a comment field that describes the payment, and that if a payment is on the do not pay list, that you don't actually pay it. None of those things are true currently. So the reason that departments can't pass audits is because the payments don't have a categorization code. It's like just a massive number of blank checks just flying out the building. So you can't reconcile blank checks. You've got comment fields that are also blank, so you don't know why the payment was made. And then we've got this truly absurd, a do not pay list, which can take up to a year for an organization to get on a do not pay list. And this, we're talking about terrorist organizations, we're talking about known fraudsters, known aspects of waste, known things that do not match any congressional appropriation, can take up to a year to get on the list, and even once on the list is not used. It's mind-blowing. So what we're talking about here, we're really just talking about adding common sense controls that should be present, that haven't been present. So you say, like, well, how could such a thing arise? That seems crazy. When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. So then when you understand that, then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything just, they approve all the payments at Treasury. Because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints. But now we're saying that, no, actually, we are going to complain. If money is spent badly, if your taxpayer dollars are not spent in a sensible and frugal manner, then that's not okay. Your tax dollars need to be spent wisely on things that matter to the people. I mean, these things, like, it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical, I think. It's really just saying, let's look at each of these expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it. So, there's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone who's 150? I don't. Okay. They should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out. So, that's a case where, like, I think they're probably dead. It's my guess. Or they should be very famous, one of the two. And then there's a whole bunch of Social Security payments where there's no identifying information. Well, like, why is there no identifying information? Obviously, we want to make sure that people who deserve to receive Social Security do receive it, and that they receive it quickly and accurately. I'll tell you another crazy thing. So, one of the things is, like, we are trying to sort of right-size the federal bureaucracy, just make sure that this. Obviously, there need to be a lot of people working for the federal government, but not as many as currently. So we're saying, well, okay, well, if people can retire, with full benefits and everything, that would be good. They can retire, get their retirement payments and everything. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we were told, no, the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government. And the elevator breaks down sometimes, and then nobody can retire. Doesn't that sound crazy? There's like 1,000 people that work on this. So I think if we can take those people and say, like, you know what, instead of working in a mine shaft and carrying manila envelopes to, boxes in a mine shaft, you could do practically anything else. And you would add to the goods and services of the United States in a more useful way. So anyway, so I think that's an example. Like at a high level, if you say, like, how do we increase prosperity? Is we get people to shift from roles that are low to negative productivity to high productivity roles, and so increase the total output of goods and services, which means that there's a higher standard of living available for everyone. That's the actual goal. Everyone's very quiet, by the way. So are people normally this quiet?
Your detractors, Mr. Musk.
What?
Including a lot of Democrats.
I have detractors?
You do, sir.
I don't believe it.
Say that you're orchestrating a hostile takeover of government and doing it in a non-transparent way. What's your response to that criticism?
Well, first of all, you couldn't ask for a stronger mandate from the public. The public voted. We have a majority of the public voting for President Trump. We won the House, we won the Senate. The people voted for major government reform. There should be no doubt about that. That was on the campaign. The president spoke about that at every rally. The people voted for major government reform, and that's what people are going to get. They're going to get what they voted for. And a lot of times, people that don't get what they voted for, but in this presidency, they are going to get what they voted for. And that's what democracy is all about.
Mr. Musk, the White House says that you will identify and excuse yourself from any conflicts of interest that you may have. Does that mean that you are, in effect, policing yourself? What are the checks and balances that are in place to ensure that there is accountability and transparency?
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, our actions, we post our actions to the DOGE handle on X and to the DOGE website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent. In fact, I don't think there's been, I don't know of a case where an organization has been more transparent than the DOGE organization. So, and the kind of things we're doing are, I think, very, very simple and basic. They're not, what I mentioned, for example, about Treasury, just making sure that payments that go out, taxpayer money that goes out, is categorized correctly, that the payment is explained, that organizations on the do not pay list, which takes a lot to get there, that actually are not paid, which currently they are paid. These are not individual judgment decisions. These are about simply having sensible checks and balances in the system itself to ensure that taxpayer money is spent well. So it's got nothing to do with, like, say, a contract with some company of mine at all.
But if there is a conflict of interest when it comes to you yourself, for instance, you've received billions of dollars in federal contracts when it comes to the Pentagon, for instance, which the president, I know, has directed you to look into.
Yeah.
Are you policing yourself in that? Is there any sort of accountability check and balance in place that would provide any transparency for the American people?
Well, all of our actions are fully public. So if you see anything, you say, like, wait a second, hey, Elon, that seems like maybe that's, there's a conflict there. It's not like people are going to be shy about saying that. They'll say it immediately.
Including you yourself.
Yes. But transparency is what builds trust, not simply somebody asserting trust. So not somebody saying they're trustworthy, but transparency, so you can see everything that's going on. And then you can see, am I doing something that benefits one of my companies or not? It's totally obvious.
And if we thought that, we would not let him do that segment or look in that area if we thought there was a lack of transparency or a conflict of interest. And we watch that also. He's a big businessman. He's a successful guy. That's why we want him doing this. We don't want an unsuccessful guy doing this. Now, one thing also that Elon hasn't really mentioned are the groups of people that are getting some of these payments. They're ridiculous. And we're talking about billions of dollars that we've already found. We found fraud and abuse. I would say those two words as opposed to the third word that I usually use, but in this case, fraud and abuse. It's abusive because most of these things are virtually made up, or certainly money shouldn't be sent to them. And you know what I'm talking about. It's crazy. So, but we're talking about tens of billions of dollars that we've already found. And now a judge who's an activist judge wants to try and stop us from doing this. Why? Why would they want to do that? I campaigned on this. I campaigned on the fact that I said government is corrupt. And it is very corrupt. It's very, very, it's also foolish. As an example, a man has a contract for 3 months and the contract ends, but they keep paying him for the next 20 years, because nobody ends a contract. You got a lot of that. You have a contract that's a 3-month contract. Now, normally, if you're in a small, in all fairness, it's the size of this thing is so big. Yeah. But if you have a contract and you're in a regular business, you end the contract in 3 months. It's a consultant. Here's a contract for 3 months, but it goes on for 20 years. And the guy doesn't say that he got money for 20 years. They don't say it. They just keep getting checks month after month, and you have various things like that, and even much worse than that, actually, much worse. And I guess you call that incompetence, maybe. Yeah. It could be corruption. It could be a deal's made on both sides, where the guy gets the money, he kicks. I think there's a lot of kickback here. I see a lot of kickback here.
There's a lot of kickbacks.
A tremendous kickback, because nobody could be so stupid to give out some of these contracts, so he has to get a kickback. So that's what I got elected for, that and borders and military and a lot of things, but this is a big part of it. And I hope that the court system is going to allow us to do what we have to do. We got elected to among other things, find all of this fraud, abuse, all of this horrible stuff going on. And we've already found billions of dollars, not like a little bit, billions, many billions of dollars. And when you get down to it, it's going to be probably close to $1 trillion. It could be close to $1 trillion that we're going to find. That will have quite an impact on the budget. And you'll go to a judge where they handpick a judge, and he has certain leanings. I'm not knocking anybody for that, but he has certain leanings. And he wants us to stop looking. How do you stop looking? I mean, we've already found it. We have a case in New York where a hotel has paid $59 million, $59 million because it's housing migrants, illegal migrants. All illegal, I believe.
And they were being paid twice the normal room rate at 100% occupancy.
Unbelievable.
So it's a racket.
Mr. Musk, can I ask a question? You
Well,
said
if I may sort of just going for the President's comments, at a high level, you say, what are the two ingredients that are really necessary in order to cut the budget deficit in half from $2 trillion to $1 trillion? And it's really two things: competence and caring. And if you add competence and caring, you'll cut the budget deficit in half. And I fully expect to be scrutinized and get a daily proctology exam, basically. Might as well just camp out there. So it's not like I think I can get away with something. I'll be scrutinized nonstop. But with the support of the President, we can cut the budget deficit in half from $2 trillion to $1, and then with deregulation, because there's a lot of sort of regulations that don't ultimately serve the public good. We need to free the builders of America to build. And if we do that, that means I think we can get the economic growth to be maybe 3-4%, maybe 5%. And that means if you can get $1 trillion of economic growth and you can cut the budget deficit by $1 trillion, between now and next year, there is no inflation. There's no inflation in 26. And if the government is not borrowing as much, it means that interest costs decline. So everyone's, the mortgage, their car payment, their credit card bills, anything, their student debt, the monthly payments drop. That's a fantastic scenario for the average American. I mean, imagine they're going down the grocery aisle and the prices from one year to the next are the same, and their mortgage, all their debt payments dropped. How great is that for the average American?
We had no idea. We had no idea we were going to find this much, and it's open. It's not like complicated. It's not simple stuff. It's like,
a lot of work. Yeah.
We can't believe it. A lot of work. A lot of smart people involved. Very, very smart people. But you're talking about anywhere maybe $500 billion. It's crazy the kind of numbers you're talking
really crazy.
about. You know, normally when you're looking at something, you'll find you're looking for 1 out of 100. Here, you're almost reversing it. You look for one that's good.
Yeah.
And you can look at the title and you say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And the public gets it. You know, the public gets it. You've seen the polls. The public is saying, why are we paying all this money? This for years, this has gone on. Yeah, go ahead. Wait, go ahead.
Senator Rand Paul today said that DOGE cuts will ultimately need a vote in Congress. Do you agree with that? Is that the plan?
I really don't know. I know this. We're finding tremendous fraud and tremendous abuse. If I need a vote of Congress to find fraud and abuse, it's fine with me. I think we'll get the vote, although there'll be some people that wouldn't vote. And how could a judge want to hold us back from finding all of this fraud and finding all of this incompetence? Why would that happen? Why would even Congress want to do that? Now, Congress, if we do need a vote, I think we'd get a very easy vote because we have a track record now. We've already found billions of dollars of abuse, incompetence, and corruption. A lot of corruption.
If a judge does block one of your policies, part of your agenda, will you abide by that ruling? Will you comply?
Well, I always abide by the courts, and then I'll have to appeal it. But then what he's done is he slowed down the momentum. And it gives crooked people more time to cover up the books. You know, if a person's crooked and they get caught, other people see that, and all of a sudden it becomes harder later on. So, yeah, the answer is I always abide by the courts, always abide by them, and will appeal. But appeals take a long time, and I would hope that a judge, if you go into a judge and you show him, here's a corrupt situation, we have a check to be sent, but we found it to be corrupt. Do you want us to send this corrupt check to a person, or do you want us not to give it and give it back to the taxpayer? I would hope a judge would say, don't send it, give it back to the taxpayer.
Yeah, if I can add to that, what we're finding is that a bunch of the fraud is not even going to Americans. So I think we can all agree that if there's going to be fraud, it should at least go to Americans. But a bunch of the fraud rings that are operating in the United States and taking advantage of the federal government, especially in the entitlements programs, are actually foreign fraud rings. They're operating in other countries and actually exporting money to other countries. We should stop that. And this is big numbers. We're talking about $100 to $200 billion a year.
Sure.
Serious money.
Mr. Musk, you said on X that an example of the fraud that you have cited was $50 million of condoms was sent to Gaza. But after fact-check this, apparently Gaza in Mozambique, and the program was to protect them against HIV. So can you correct the statements? It wasn't sent to Hamas, actually. It was sent to Mozambique, which makes sense why condoms was sent there.
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that all the statements that you said were correct, so we can trust what you say?
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. And that is really an enormous number of condoms, if you think about it. If it went to Mozambique instead of Gaza, I'm like, okay, that's not as bad, but still, why are we doing that?
Mr. Musk, can you talk a little bit about how closely you're working with agency heads as you're directing these cuts? Do they have how much input do agency heads have when you're making these decisions?
Yeah, we work closely with the agency heads. There are sort of checks in place. So it's not just us just going in and doing things willy-nilly. It's in partnership with the agency heads, and I check frequently with the president to make sure that this is what the president wants to have happen. So we talk almost every day, and I double check things to make sure, is this something, Mr. President, you want us to do this? Then we'll do it.
USAID has been one of your main targets. Are you concerned at all that some of the cuts or that shutting that agency altogether may lead to diseases or other bigger problems starting in other countries that then come to the United States? Yeah, so that's an interesting example. So that's something where we work closely with the State Department and Secretary Rubio. And we have, for example, turned on funding for Ebola prevention and for HIV prevention. Left that, you said?
Yes, correct. And we are moving fast, so we will make mistakes, but we'll also fix the mistakes very quickly.
So, do you see it as a worthy cause, USAID?
I think that there are some worthy things, but overall, if you say what was the bang for the buck, I would say it was not very good. And there was far too much of what USAID was doing was influencing elections in ways that I think were dubious and do not stand the light of day.
I can just ask a follow-up to the Pentagon contracts. If you have received billions of dollars in contracts from the Pentagon, and the president's directing you to look into the Department of Defense, is that a conflict of interest?
Yes, we definitely need to do and are going to do at the president's request.
Does that present a conflict of interest for you?
No, because you'd have to look at the individual contract and say, first of all, I'm not the one, filing the contract. It's people at SpaceX or someone who will be putting for the contract. And I'd like to say, if you see any contract where where it was awarded to SpaceX and it wasn't by far the best value for money for the taxpayer, let me know, because every one of them was.
The president said the other day that you might look at treasuries. Could you explain that a little bit? What kind of fraud, and that question goes to both of you, what kind of fraud are you expecting to see or do you see right now in U.S. treasuries?
Yeah, I think you mean the Treasury Department as opposed to Treasury bills. Or
you also referenced treasuries on Air Force One the other night.
Go ahead.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, really the first order of business is to make sure we're actually collecting. Sorry for this. I thought my son might enjoy this, but he's sticking his fingers in my ears and stuff. So it's a bit hard to hear sometimes. Hey, stop that. No, the stuff we're doing with the Treasury Department is so basic that you can't believe it doesn't exist already. So, for example, like I mentioned, just making sure that when a payment goes out, it has to have a payment categorization code. It's like, what type of payment is this? You can't just leave the field blank. Currently, many payments, the field is left blank. And you have to describe what's the payment for, some basic rationalization. That also is left blank. So this is why, the Pentagon, when's the last time the Pentagon passed an audit? I mean, a decade ago, maybe? Ever? Really? And we want to just, in order to actually pass audits, you have to have financial information that allows you to trace the payments. And once in a while, the Treasury has to pause payments if it thinks the payment is going to a fraudulent organization. If a company or an organization is on a do not pay list, we should not pay it. I'm sure you would agree. Like, if it's quite hard to get on that payment, the do not pay list, it means that this is someone that is just, it's like dead people, terrorists, known fraudsters, that kind of thing. We should not pay them. But currently we do, which is crazy. We should stop that.
Many transactions. And by the way, hundreds, thousands of transactions like that. You know, we have a big team. And for the sake of the country, I hope that the person that's in charge and the other people that report to me that are in charge are allowed to do the right thing, namely make sure everything's honest, legitimate, and competent. But we're looking at just, when you look at USAID, that's one. We're going to look at the military. We're going to look at education. They're much bigger areas. But the USAID is really corrupt. I'll tell you, it's corrupt. It's incompetent, and it's really corrupt. And I can't imagine a judge saying, well, it may be corrupt, but you don't have the right. You got elected to look over the country and to, as we say, make America great again, but you don't have the right to go and look and see whether or not things are right that they're paying or that things are honest that they're paying. And nobody can even believe this. Other people, law professors, they've been saying, how can you take that person's right away? You're supposed to be running the country, but we're not allowed to look at who they're paying it to and what they're paying. We have massive amounts of fraud that we caught. I think we probably caught way over a lot of billions of dollars already in, 2 weeks?
Yes.
And it's going to go to numbers that you're not going to believe. And much, as I said, much is incompetence and much is dishonesty. We have to catch it. And the only way we're going to catch it is to look for it. And if a judge is going to say you're not allowed to look for it, that's pretty sad for our country. I don't understand how it could even work.
On the buyout program, can you personally guarantee that?
Which one?
The buyout program, the operative federal workers. Can you personally guarantee that the workers who opt in to resign now will be paid through September?
They'll get their money, but they're getting a good deal. They're getting a big buyout. And what we're trying to do is reduce government. We have too many people. We have office space. It's occupied by 4%. Nobody's showing up to work because they were told not to. And then Biden gave them a 5-year pass, some of them, 48,000 of them, gave them a 5-year pass, that for 5 years you don't have to show up to work. And let me tell you, this is largely, much of this stuff is because of Biden. It's his fault. He allowed this country, what he did on our border. What he did on our border is almost not as bad as what he did with all of these contracts that have come out. It's a very sad day when we look at it. I can't even believe it. But many contracts just extend, and they just keep extending, and there was nobody there to correct it. And that cannot be, I can't imagine that could be held up by the court. Any court that would say that the president or his representatives, like Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of State, whatever, doesn't have the right to go over their books and make sure everything's honest. I mean, how can you have a country? You can't have anything that way. You can't have a business that way. You can't have a country that way. Hey, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you, press. Come on, guys. Head out.
We'll be at the White House tonight at about 10 o'clock. If you want to come over, you can say hello to him.
Did you guys get anything in return?
Not much. No, they were very nice. We were treated very nicely by Russia, actually. I hope that's the beginning of a relationship where we can end that war and millions of people can stop being killed. They've lost millions of people. They lost In terms of soldiers, probably 1.5 million soldiers in a short period of time. We got to stop that war. And I'm interested primarily from the standpoint of death. We're losing all those soldiers. And they're not American soldiers, they're Ukrainian and Russian soldiers. But you're probably talking about 1.5 million. I think we got to bring that one to an end. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, guys, you're just watching President Donald Trump signing an executive order, and with Elon Musk talking about reducing government waste. At one point, Trump actually said by the end, he may find close to $1 trillion of government waste. All right, moving on. Next, Dave's Hot Chicken turned down the heat on labor costs with automation and outsourcing. 21 states recently raised minimum wages. In California, the minimum wage increased to $20 an hour. And that's last year. This is the highest in the U.S. for restaurant jobs. In response, the company convinced restaurant operators during a franchisee conference to switch to automatic dishwashers and contract out cleaning work. The chain also added self-ordering kiosks to California restaurants. Executives were worried customers would find the machines impersonal, but found customers actually order extras through the system. And this week, CVS could reveal a successful turnaround or continue a slump. The healthcare conglomerate has missed earnings targets for the last 3 quarters and withdrew its annual forecast. CVS underwent a management reshuffle and named David Joyner as CEO in October. The following month, the company laid out major plans for cost cutting. CVS, like its peers, are struggling with elevated costs across its Medicare plans for people older than 65. And CVS Health investors will be closely assessing turnaround initiatives when the company releases its 4th quarter results. And that would come out tomorrow. Now, they cost more and you can't buy as many. I'm talking about eggs. Some stores are setting a limit on the number of eggs shoppers can buy. This is in response to a shortage caused by the avian flu, more commonly known as the bird flu. Trader Joe's confirms that it is currently limiting egg purchases to 1 dozen per customer per day at all stores across the U.S. And Costco has set a max of 3 packages, which are typically sold in 2 or 4 dozen cartons. Kroger said it does not have a nationwide rule in place, but that some locations have chosen to limit purchases to only 2 dozen based on availability. The new limits are in addition to sourcing prices, or souring prices that is. From November to December alone, the price spiked 14%. And a major move from President Trump, he's imposing a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum, a decision set to take effect on March 4th. The move could have wide-reaching effects on trade, industry, and consumer prices. NTD's Bannon and Adams has more on that and other recent steps.
President Trump has imposed a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum, set to take effect March 4th, impacting key suppliers like Canada, Mexico, and South Korea.
And it's going to mean a lot of businesses are going to be opening in the United States.
U.S. steelmakers welcome the move, saying it protects domestic production.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. This is the beginning of making America rich again.
The American Iron and Steel Institute says trade policies implemented during Trump's first administration created a more competitive environment for the U.S. steel industry, leading to significant investments in new and upgraded facilities. Although the tariffs may be unwelcome news for foreign steel producers, Trump says they can avoid the new fees by shifting production to the U.S.
So if it's made in the United States, there is no tariff. All you have to do is make it in the United States. We don't need it from another country.
Analysts warn that industries that rely on metals, automakers, appliance manufacturers, and construction could see rising costs fueling inflation. On Monday, Trump said he will announce more reciprocal tariffs in the next 2 days.
If they charge us, we charge them. If they're at 25, we're at 25. If they're at 10, we're at 10.
Trump argues these moves will strengthen domestic manufacturing, though concerns remain over the broader economic impact. Shares at major listed steelmakers and top producer China slid on Tuesday as the fresh tariffs stoked concerns over the possible impact on steel exports this year. Meanwhile, Trump has signed an executive order reversing Biden-era environmental policies, including a measure phasing out single-use plastics like straws. Trump says paper straws don't work.
And I don't think that plastic's going to affect a shark very much as they're munching their way through the ocean.
The policy reversal sparked mixed reactions from consumers.
I would honestly prefer the plastic one over a paper straw, to be honest. I mean, I know it's definitely worse for the environment. I wish there was a different way. But, I mean, the paper ones are always soggy, so it's a little difficult.
And I think that as a consumer, I would definitely choose to support places that don't have plastic straws.
In another executive action, Trump has paused enforcement of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, calling it a disaster for business. The 1977 law bans U.S. companies from bribing foreign officials, but Trump argues it hurts American competitiveness. Attorney General Pam Bondi will oversee the shift, prioritizing cartel and terrorism cases instead. And in a high-profile pardon, Trump has cleared former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. The Democrat served 8 years of a 14-year sentence for corruption charges, including attempting to sell Barack Obama's Senate seat. Trump previously commuted his sentence in 2020. Trump was asked if he is considering Blagojevich for ambassador to Serbia.
No, but I would. I mean, he's now cleaner than anybody in this room.
While Trump's latest moves are drawing praise from supporters and criticism from opponents, the long-term impact remains to be seen. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Now, it's worth mentioning that Trump said he agreed to consider a tariff exemption on Australian steel and aluminum imports after a telephone call yesterday with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Trump said the United States trade surplus with Australia was one of the reasons he was considering an exemption from the tariffs. Now, Australia had an exemption of such tariffs during Trump's first administration as well. Meanwhile, the U.S. is now putting its coal export energy into India, and this comes after China announced 15% tariffs on U.S. coal imports. Industry experts now expect the U.S. to boost coal exports to India, which is the world's second largest coal importer after China. India's iEnergy Natural Resources Director said that 3 U.S. cargoes that were supposed to go to China have already landed in India, with 10 more waiting. Australia was the dominant coal supplier to India in the last decade, but India has diversified with supplies from the U.S. and Russia and Mozambique. Australia could now regain some coal share in China. President Trump on Tuesday moved to return to older standards for light bulbs, toilets, and showers. Trump said he would call on the Environmental Protection Agency to go back to water standards from his first term in the White House. Those rules would also affect sinks, washers, machines, and dishwashers. The decision comes a day after Trump signed an executive order ending the forced use of paper straws over plastic. The federal government will now be required to cease purchasing paper straws, and paper straws will not be provided in federal buildings. The order also requires the development of a national strategy to end the use of paper straws within 45 days. The chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, testifies before the Senate Banking Committee this morning, and this is what he said about the U.S. economy. Listen.
The economy is strong overall and has made significant progress toward our goals over the past 2 years. We do not need to be in a hurry to adjust our policy stance. We know that reducing policy restraint too fast or too much could hinder progress on inflation.
Powell's Senate testimony is the first of 2 days of hearings on Capitol Hill. After his testimony to the Senate Banking Committee today, Powell will appear before the House Financial Services Committee for more. And South Korea's acting president said his government would seek talks with the Trump administration about Washington's 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports. He added that the chief executives of 20 major South Korean conglomerates plan to visit the U.S. Acting President Choi Sang-mok said the government also intends to discuss response measures with Japan and the European Union. The South Korean acting president said his nation is making an all-out effort to build close ties with the Trump administration to protect the interests of South Korean companies. Earlier today, the company's trade minister said that Trump's 25% tariffs effective in March would erode steel exporters' profitability. He added that, however, duties may offer opportunities for Korean companies to find new export markets. Now, your yearly Valentine flowers have arrived in Miami. In the run-up to February 14th, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection says agricultural specialists at Miami International Airport have processed about 940 million stems of cut flowers. Around 90% of the fresh cut flowers being sold for Valentine's Day in the United States come through Miami each year, and the other 10% pass through Los Angeles. Now, roses, carnations, pom-poms, and gypsophilia arrive on hundreds of flights, mostly from Colombia and Ecuador, into Miami on their journey to florists and supermarkets across the U.S. and Canada. The Georgia Department of Agriculture has lifted the suspension of poultry activities in Georgia, which is one of the country's top poultry-producing states. And it comes after bird flu testing, depopulation, and disinfecting were done in the area, and no new cases were found. In January, all poultry exhibitions and sales in Georgia were suspended after positive bird flu cases in Elbert County were identified at 2 facilities. The highly contagious virus was responsible for the deaths of more than 40 million egg-laying birds. Last year, it's been a contributing factor in the soaring price of eggs across the U.S., as the USDA requires the culling of entire flocks to stop the spread where the virus is detected. Aviation giant Airbus is exploring a potential double-level airplane seat design. The brains behind the dual-level seat is aviation startup Chase Long. The company says it's exploring some early-stage concepts with Airbus. An Airbus representative confirmed that statement. The collaboration is a significant step in the seat's design journey from college student project to potential in-flight reality. And the penny may soon be on its way out in the United States. President Donald Trump announced on Sunday he's ordered his administration to cease production of the 1-cent coin. Now, Canada eliminated its penny over a decade ago. So what can Americans expect? We asked people who have already been through this.
Producing a penny probably is going to cost more than a penny, for sure.
With a penny, you could buy a candy once upon a time. Now you can't do much. So that just says that it really doesn't have a value, right? And so not having a value means that we should get rid of it.
As much as it's nice to have currency, a lot of people are moving away from having currency in their hand. Not a lot of people carry change anymore or any other kind of major bill, let alone coins. So it's just one less thing you have to have in your pocket, I guess.
Yeah, I'm using credit cards, so it doesn't impact me.
When President Donald Trump changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico, it still said Gulf of Mexico on Google Maps, but not anymore, because Google says its policy is to change names when they have been updated by official government sources. Trump changed the name through an executive order last month, and Google Maps is now reflecting that change. But users in Mexico will still see the name Gulf of Mexico. Everywhere else, though, users will see both names. Trump also changed the name of Mount Denali in Alaska back to Mount McKinley. Google said it would change that on its maps too, but it hasn't happened yet. As for what map and globe makers do, that decision is up to them. Now, ahead of Valentine's Day, the federal government is raising awareness about a sophisticated online romance scam. The Commodities Future Trading Commission has launched the Dating or Defrauding Awareness campaign. The multi-agency social media initiative is warning Americans about relationship investment scams. According to the agency, fraudsters use fake profiles on dating apps and even wrong number text messages to target possible victims. The scammer would claim to have made a lot of money trading cryptocurrency. Victims are told to convert their dollars to cryptocurrency and send it to a scam website for ways to earn extra money. The federal agency says never trade or give money to people you only meet online or know them. In 2023, the FBI reported a nearly $4 billion loss to crypto-related investment scams. And references to cultural events like Black History Month and Pride Month have been removed in an update to Google Calendar's default settings. Among the excluded observance preferences were women's history and Jewish heritage and Hispanic heritage, Indigenous Peoples Month, and Holocaust Remembrance Day. The changes prompted some to criticize the company. A Google spokesperson said the changes were implemented last year as part of a broader revamp of the calendar tool based on user input. The spokesperson explained that years ago, the calendar team started manually adding a broader set of cultural moments in a wide number of countries. According to the spokesperson, maintaining it wasn't sustainable. Sam Altman rejects Elon Musk's bid to buy OpenAI, but is that decision ultimately his? Here's more on that.
Well, it's ridiculous.
OpenAI CEO Sam Altman rejects Elon Musk's bid to buy OpenAI.
Sorry? The company is not for sale. It's like another one of his, tactics to try to mess with us.
Musk, along with other investors, offered $97.4 billion to buy OpenAI on Monday. Musk's lawyer, Mark Toberoff, says he wants to return it to being open source and safety focused. Altman posted on X, "No thank you, but we will buy Twitter for $9.74 billion if you want." Ultimately, it's up to OpenAI's board whether or not to sell. In a Bloomberg interview, Altman says he thinks Musk is just trying to compete.
I think he's probably just trying to slow us down. He obviously is a competitor. He's working hard and he's raised a lot of money for XAI, and they're trying to compete with us.
Altman says he thinks Musk is using tactics to get ahead instead of focusing on building a better product.
If he was looking for a financial gain, he would have just went along with what Sam was doing in terms of migrating the nonprofit sector out of it. This is strictly not a money play.
AI expert Daniel Keller says he thinks Musk is trying to make a point about OpenAI moving away from its original mission.
AI needs to be available for all. Open source-based platforms that anybody can see input and output algorithms, and I think Elon holds that as well.
Keller says he's surprised it took Musk this long to make a bid for OpenAI.
Okay, on to markets now. Wall Street's main indexes ended mixed today, and this is coming as gains in Coca-Cola and Apple offset losses in Tesla. So investors parsed through Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's latest comments from earlier today. Just a refresher, the U.S. Central Bank is in no rush to cut its short-term interest rate again, given the economy is strong overall. That's coupled with low unemployment and inflation still above the Fed's 2% target. Now, Powell said in opening remarks at a Senate Banking Committee hearing that this was the case, and investors was also on the lookout for any new tariff comments from U.S. President Donald Trump. He did say that there would be announcements over the next few days about potentially reciprocal tariffs on all countries that impose duties on U.S. goods. And that is all today on Business Matters. Stay tuned, though. Elon Musk has been busy at his Department of Government Efficiency position. He's cut billions of dollars from the federal budget in a short amount of time. Will that be enough to reduce the deficit significantly if he works alongside President Trump for 4 years? Our data reporter breaks it down in just a few minutes.
I'm Ilka. I live with my daughter and with my grandchildren. There's a sense of comfort that comes with eating a good meal. We try to make the most, of what we have. We have rent to pay, and then there are lights and there are gas. And while my daughter and I both work, it still just doesn't seem like there's enough to go around sometimes.
Every day, millions of our neighbors face hunger, including 1 in 5 children, and food costs keep rising. Please call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Your monthly support can fill plates with nutritious food for families across the country and in your community, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks and volunteers.
If you were over and playing with us, you were part of our family and you were going to eat. A real cook can take nothing and make something.
No one should ever have to wonder if they will have enough to eat, and our neighbors are working hard to feed their families every day. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. Use your credit card and you'll get this exclusive canvas grocery bag as a thank you for joining hands with people across America to help end hunger.
Some of the lessons that I hope that my family will take, it is important to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I have carried on the tradition of loving people through food.
Please call right now or go online to make a monthly gift at helpfeedingamerica.org. Your support helps our neighbors bring food home to their families.
First time that when I see him, a lot of stuff came into my mind because I wasn't prepared at all. I know the first 3 months of his life were really important, and I wanted to be there all the time for him. First time he was like, "Daddy, Daddy." That was one of his first words. He grew up so quick. He just surprised me every day. He's really smart. I really think he can be an astronaut, president. But I'm gonna support him for wherever he wants to be. Whether he wanna be a photographer, musician, whatever. As a father, I guess you don't focus on you. I put himself first. That's what a dad does.
Welcome back. The Department of Government Efficiency, headed by Elon Musk, is slashing parts of the U.S. budget. Here to expand on this is NTD data reporter Kevin Hogan. Kevin, how much are they cutting? What are they cutting? And what savings could that amount to over the course of President Trump's second term?
Well, the Department of Government Efficiency, headed by Elon Musk, has cut about $8 billion, and that's just in a couple weeks right there. So that's $7.7 billion. That's a lot of money. We're here to help you understand whether or not you think that's a good thing or not. So look at this. This is the breakdown of DOGE spending, everything from consulting to contracts. Look at this. This is $4 billion right here. Okay, that's that big blue dot right there. Now, what does that mean? That's NIH funding. That's their administrative grants, right? So they give money to places like Harvard, and Harvard charges the government, well, a lot of money, say 60%. Musk said, no, shrink that down to 15%. That's all they're allowed to charge the government, saving $4 billion. That's over half of DOGE's spending cuts right there alone. And there's a couple other things, you talk about administrative grants, right? So that's big right here. That's what they're going after mostly, and that's annual savings. So it adds up year after year. But what else, though? You look at this, contracts, right? So in these contracts, you're talking about $800 or more billion in these Department of Education contracts, right? That's right here. That's this blue piece. So, you're talking 20% of the cuts that they're making, right? So what does that go into? Just to give you a small example, that's $1.5 million for a contractor to oversee mailing operations. Musk said that was questionable. He says that's unnecessary. So he says, you know what? They have to cut that, right? All right, now DEI, that's what you see in this light green right here. That's a big area that President Trump and Elon Musk have been targeting. You're talking about $1.1 billion in cuts. Okay, so this is about 15% of their total cuts right here. So that's a big area that they've said, you know what, they don't want anything to do with that in the federal government. They've chopped that right off. And this is primarily in the Office of Personnel Management, but it's also in U.S. aid. For example, $45 million in DEI scholarships for countries like Burma, for example. So they just said, no, slash that all right there. Now, what happens if Musk keeps up this pace? You think about $8 billion in 3 weeks over the course of a full year. So we're going to pull that up for you. Musk is a temporary employee, right? He can only work 130 days in a year, but he may stick around for 4 years, right? So this is the projected one-year DOGE savings. Right now, you're looking at the 2024 deficit, okay? So I'll just mark that up for you right here so you can see. 2024 deficit, and that is, I mean, that's $1.8 trillion or so, right? So that's a big deficit. What can DOGE cut from that, right? You just see it's only about $130 billion. You give him 1 year, that's what you're getting. Okay, that's minuscule. I mean, you're talking only like a few percent, right? That's not really going to do much. But now, what if you give Musk 4 years? What could you expect, right? This is a savings. We're going to put up the 2028 projected deficit, and that's according to the Senate Budget Committee, right? That's what you see here. I mean, you're talking $2 trillion. What is Musk cutting? He's cutting about $526 billion, right? So that's a big, significant portion. That's 27% of your deficit that one person, just Elon Musk and his DOGE, has cut right there. That's a lot of savings for you. Okay, now we're going to move on here. We're going to take a wide view of the 2024 budget, assuming that's similar in 2025, right? You have two parts. Discretionary spending, that's about $4 trillion, and you have mandatory spending, that's $3 trillion right here. This is things like Social Security, Medicare. Musk can't touch that. The law requires that be spent. But this is the area, this discretionary spending, that's where Musk can come in and make his cuts. What is this? This is Department of Defense. This is the housing, education, all the other things, right? So if Musk were to take from that, what could he cut if he kept up this pace for 1 year? Look at this. You're looking at about 3% that he's able to cut off that annual budget. Now, this is one-time cuts as well as annual cuts. But if you give him 4 years, look at that. You balloon that out to about 12%. Okay, so that's a significant portion of the discretionary spending that Trump and Musk would be able to shave off if he keeps at this for 4 years. Now, will Musk stick around for that long? He says he wanted to cut $500 billion. We heard Trump talking about $1 trillion that they could save. So we'll have to see what they end up doing, but that's the projection if we crunch the numbers. Back to you.
Okay, Kevin, thank you for that. Next, House Republicans announce a new Oversight Committee task force while House Democratic leadership joins protests against Trump and Elon Musk. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has more on this story.
Congressman James Comer, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, announced this Tuesday the creation of the task force on the declassification of federal secrets.
The federal government has not answered these questions. This creates distrust in our institutions. That ends today. And the mandate of this task force is to acquire that transparency.
The newly created task force will be led by Congresswoman Ana Paulina Luna. The task force will not have subpoena power, but will work closely with congressional and federal partners to compel testimony if required.
We'll be conducting investigations into the following: the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King, unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs, unidentified submerged objects, also known as USOs, the Epstein client list, the origins of COVID-19, and the 9/11 files.
According to Congresswoman Ana Paulina Luna, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson chose her personally to lead the new task force. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson also threw his support behind the works of the Department of Government Efficiency regarding government spending.
They're uncovering things that we have known intuitively have been there, but we couldn't prove it. Now the proof is being provided, and no one can argue the counter to that. So stay tuned. There's a lot more to come.
Congressional Democrats joined protesters outside of the Capitol demanding the resignation of Elon Musk and even called on federal employees to refuse what they called illegal orders.
If you are able, stand up. If you are able, I want you to decline to enforce an illegal instruction.
Yeah.
If you are able and the facts support the case, sign up in one of those whistleblower portals that the United States Senate Democrats have put up. We are not powerless. We are out of power, but we are not powerless.
It is worth noting that the newly created task force on the declassification of federal secrets will begin its investigations on the assassination of JFK, RFK, and MLK. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Coming up after the break, New York-based performing arts company Shen Yun performed at a British seaside resort town. Some very distinguished guests give their feedback on the show. Stay tuned for that.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
A painting that has true beauty. I imagine it's like a door. The artist holds the key to open the door and bring people to a pure world. A world where people are more compassionate.
Welcome back. The company that owns the license to a strategic mineral deposit in Greenland is hoping for a repeal of uranium mining ban after next month's election. If the appeal is approved, one of the world's largest rare earth projects could be unleashed. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the site.
President Trump last month voiced renewed interest in acquiring Greenland. The strategically important Arctic island is home to rare earth metals critical to the national security of the United States.
I think it certainly puts everything related to minerals back on the map. However, President Trump is very clear in his focus and interest about Greenland, and states it's geostrategic, it's about security.
Energy Transition Minerals hold the license for the country's Quantifeld mineral deposit. CEO Daniel Mamadou sees the potential.
Within the next 3 to 5 years, we'll now have refining capacity outside of China. And this is now an alternative market which Quantifeld would be very ready to provide and supply.
Quantifeld is among the world's top 3 rare earth deposits outside China. Mamadou says it's capable of supplying 15% of global production of the critical components used in consumer electronics and weapons.
Our production is not committed to any particular party or any particular country at this stage. We're completely open.
Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
New York-based performing arts company Shen Yun performed at the British seaside resort town Llandudno. Among the audience members were the mayor and mayoress, who described the show as absolutely magical. The classical Chinese dance company has the mission to revive China's 5,000 years of traditional culture and tours the world with brand new choreography and music every year. NTD is an official sponsor of Shen Yun Performing Arts. Here's what they had to say.
The mayor and mayoress of Llandudno enjoyed Shen Yun performing arts on the 9th of February at Venue Cymru in Llandudno, Wales. They've seen the show twice now and would come back again.
Beautiful. Beautiful. We have been to China, and we've seen a lot of shows in China, but this one has them beaten hands down. And the orchestra, the whole show is fantastic. It's wonderful. And if you come back again, we will be here again.
Absolutely wonderful. We were here last year, and I think it's even better than last year. It's magical. That's probably one of the best words I can say. It's absolutely magical.
Shen Yun dancers are trained in classical Chinese dance, an expressive and dynamic dance form. The mayor and mayoress described the energy.
Off the scale. It's just got so much, I don't want to say energy, that doesn't describe it. It's got a magical quality that, defies description sometimes when you see the movement, the energy, the very vibrancy.
Oh, I wish I was like that. They have so much energy, but they're all young. They're all young, but it's fantastic. It just comes over all the time. Energy, 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 and it's just wonderful.
Shen Yun portrays ancient legends and modern tales from China's 5,000-year history, a culture said to be deeply spiritual and inspired by the divine.
It obviously comes across because they obviously all work very well together. So there's something that binds them together, and perhaps that's being spiritual.
And perhaps we've got an awful lot to learn from watching the performance, watching how they feel about things, and it comes from the heart. And I think perhaps a lot has been lost, not just to China, but to the world, basically, generally, of so much beauty, so much elegance, so much belief.
And they encourage everyone to go see Shen Yun.
You go away and you'll talk to your friends and say, unfortunately, you've not seen it, we've seen it, and you've missed out. It was well worth. I wish everybody could see it.
Stunning. Absolutely beautiful. If you get a chance to go and see it, even though it's not here, please go and see it. It's absolutely stunning. It's absolutely magical. Please go and enjoy it. Go and feel the show.
Shen Yun will continue its UK tour in the coastal resort town of Bournemouth on the 12th and 13th, with 3 more towns and cities to follow later this month. NTD UK News, Llandudno, Wales.
And that's the show today. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific.